If you're taking IGCSE business studies and you're panicking, this is the video for you because it covers the whole of Unit 3. It's a long video, but hey, it's a big unit. But if you just sit back, relax, press play, it will explain everything in a way that's designed to make you fully understand and be able to achieve the high analysis and evaluation marks. Hopefully you already know me, you've watched the channel and you've used my free learning platform, Biz Ed Made Simple. On that platform, it has AI skill makers, it has resources you can download all for free. It is everything you need to get an A-star grade in business studies. There's chapters in this video so you can skip through, but like I say, I thoroughly recommend going on the learning platform. Good luck. Welcome to Biz Ed Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at the role of marketing, and we're going to do it in a little silly story, memorable way as always. So in my silly story, we have John who's thinking about going into marketing, and somehow he gets a meeting with Irene Smith, who I've made up, but she is the big head of marketing at Apple. And Irene Smith says, well, if you want to know about marketing, you need the Irene Smith MBA. There we go, there's a little way to remember it. Let's see how we go. So, he says, what is that? What are you talking about? Well, the first thing is, she says, one of the roles of marketing is identifying customer needs. So if we have a little look at this person over here, her job is to interview, do market research and say, what are you looking for in your mobile phone? She takes market research and they say things, I want a longer battery life, battery camera doesn't make any sense there, but she records that data and then she can pass that on to the product design team. The other thing that someone else in marketing would be doing is satisfying customer needs. So she would then get the product, the prototype being made, and she would see, does it meet the requests of the customers? Has it got a better battery? Has it got an improved camera? She has to make sure that the customer's needs are satisfied, that they're going to be happy with it. She then takes her on into another room and she said, well, another role is maintaining customer loyalty. So she shows this person, she says, we want to make sure that Apple customers are loyal. They don't swap over to Samsung. And this person is in charge of making sure that happens. So he's created Apple loyalty rewards, 10% off the next purchase, and he's doing a good marketing job. Then she said, we're not done yet though. We've still got the B of building customer relationships. This person in marketing team, they just sit at the computer all day and they make sure that the customers of Apple are going to defend them, that they feel part of the company. So when someone writes on the Apple webpage, there's someone writing back saying, well done, we value you, we're in a relationship, you should trust us. So that would be another one of the ones. And finally, although of course there are more for our exam, we've got the A. There is someone at Apple whose job is to anticipate changing in customer needs. So he's going to be looking into the future, going, what's happening with AI and all of these sorts of things? What do the customers want before they even know it themselves? What will they want in the next 10 years? Because they're going to have to start planning for that now. That's it. Said it was short. There's the little mnemonic. Irene Smith's MBA, and that tells you the 5 things, the 5 roles of marketing. Hope it helps. Any questions, put them in the comments below. Welcome to Biz Ed Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at understanding market changes, and we're going to go back to a story that we've already covered in a previous video. We're going to look at Apple, and we're going to see how they've changed over time. And we're going to go back to the story of John, who was asking questions to Irene Smith, who I made up was the head of marketing for Apple. Now, in my silly story here, he's coming in with a load of questions, and she's going to be answering them. All of the questions are, of course, related to the syllabus and the things you need to know. So John is thinking that once you get through the interview process and you've got a job for Apple, you're set for life and you can just relax. Irene is explaining that is not the case. So the first thing she says is customer spending patterns are always changing. Even if you're Apple, you can't just think, well, I've got 1 million sales this month, it'll be 1 million sales next month. It's continually varying. And he says, well, why is that the case? And she comes up with 3 answers. So she says, first of all, tastes and fashion. Previously, they wanted large iPads, the population, but then tastes change. Now, people are wanting better mobile phones because they don't want to have 2 devices. They want larger mobile phones that they can just use in place of both the mobile phone and the iPhone. So Apple has to move with the times there. Secondly, income. Income changes across the world. We go through recessions and growth, see it in Unit 6 video, but when that happens, the spending patterns change of customers as well. It could be lots of people have got loads of money to buy their expensive iPhone products and Apple products, and then they have less money and they buy less. Also, another one to mention is population structure changes. So in this one, as a population in a country might get older, then there might be a greater demand for Apple Watch health features. If it's younger, it might be more for running and those sorts of things. But all of that means spending patterns at Apple are always changing. And all of that can be applied to any businesses. Okay, we move on. And she said the other thing you have to understand is, even though we're Apple, all of the markets are becoming more competitive. It's more difficult to run a global business now than it was 50 years ago. He says, well, why is that happening? So she gets a list up again. The first one, she said, well, globalization and free trade. Again, have a look at Unit 6. You can see about all of this. But trade barriers have been reduced in certain parts of the world. We have big trade blocs like the European Union. And that means that Apple it has to compete globally with companies like Samsung and Xiaomi coming from China, and all of those companies are coming and trying to take sales away from Apple. Secondly, transportation has improved. It could be that maybe in the past people said, oh, I like this phone from China, but it's never going to get here. It'll take ages. Now transportation has picked up, and you can probably get a mobile phone sent across the world in like a week. So all of that means that Apple has to compete with all of the international countries around the world. Thirdly, technological development, she explains. That it might be that China had great phones, but how could they get those phones advertised to other countries around the world? Well, with things like social media, that's really easy for them to do it. So technological developments means you can brand and put adverts out to an international market very easily, all of which puts pressure on Apple being the number one. Well, she said, right, okay. And he said, well, what do you do about those things? How can businesses and Apple respond to the changes in spending patterns and increased competition? She says, let me tell you 4 things that they can do. First, we have to maintain good relationships. This ties back with the previous videos where I was telling you all the things that marketing involves. So we have to make sure we keep our customers loyal. We reply to them in chat forums, and if they complain, we address problems. We must keep a good relationship. Next, we can't just have the iPhone and leave it there. We have to product develop. We have to improve the cameras, improve the batteries. We have to improve our existing products. Otherwise, competitors will just get better products than us and we'll get left behind. Not only do we have to improve the current products, we have to make new products. Things will go out of fashion. So wireless, wire headphones could have gone out of date, whereas Apple previously made them. They then had to introduce AirPods, the wireless headphones, and move with the times. And finally, we've got to keep the promotion up all of the time. We've got to have exciting brands. If we don't have a big launch promotion, if we don't have lots of advertising on the internet, then we'll get left behind, because Samsung will definitely be doing it. That's it for the video. Very quick one. Hope it helps. Any questions, write them in the comments below. Welcome to BizEd Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at mass marketing versus niche marketing. We're going to be covering the concepts of what they both mean, as they can see, and then we're going to run through the advantages and disadvantages. As ever, we're going to be doing it with a sillier story so that you can fully understand it, not just remember it. So we've got to start with the definitions, which may not mean much, but we can see mass marketing is selling standardized products or ranges of products in the same way to the whole market, whereas niche marketing is identifying and exploiting a small segment of a larger market by developing differentiated products to suit that segment. Well, that sounds complicated, but what does it mean? So let's get into the silly story. Well, in my silly story, I'm going to have Mr. Robinson. Just bear with me. You can skip forward after the advantages and disadvantages if you want, but this is explaining it. So I'm going to have Mr. Robinson. Now, Mr. Robinson in my story is incredibly wealthy, but he loves watches, and he's decided that what he wants to do is use his money to start up a watch company. So he gets 2 marketing experts. He gets Mark, the marketing expert, and Nuria, the marketing expert, and he sends them off and he says, look, I just want to sell watches, but I want you to give me advice about what the best watch is to sell or whatever else. So he sends them off to go away and think about it. And they come back with two very different plans. Mark comes back and he says, look, this is the thing you got to do. You are going to make a mass market, there's the term, but you don't need to worry about it yet. You're going to make a mass market standard Casio style watch, like the one on my screen over here. But we're not going to call it Casio because you're not. We're going to call it something else like Robinson's watch. But it's going to be bog standard. It's just going to do standard things. It's going to be suitable for everyone. We're going to use neutral colors. There'll be nothing to particularly dislike, but there'll be nothing special about it. And we'll try to make it cheaply, and as a result of that, we'll keep the price, the selling price, fairly low. It'll be a standard watch, tells the time, maybe a stopwatch, just like the one over there. He says, okay, right, oh, there's an idea. He then turns to Nuria. He says, Nuria, what have you got? Nuria says, no, Mark is all wrong. We're going to go different. We are going to make a surfing watch. We're going to make a watch that aims at surfers. Look at this little watch. It will still have those standard time things, but we're going to particularly aim at surfers because this watch is going to have wave information within it as well. Not just the time, it's going to say things about tides, it's going to be located, connected with the internet to tell people what the waves are doing around the world. So this is not aimed at everyone. This is a niche market. Again, don't worry about the term, but we're going to aim this watch not at everyone, not everyone who needs a watch. We're going to aim at surfers that need a watch. So we're going to aim so that most surfers buy this watch. He says, wow, there are really different ideas then. And he said, well, I don't know what to choose here. You're going to have to pitch me the relative strengths and advantages of these two ideas. I want you to have a little think about them now. Okay, they then come back later ready to do the pitch of why they should go for these. So it's Mark to start, and Mark says, look, Mr. Robinson, you've got to go for the Casio style watch. He says, all right, why? He said, well, the first is, it's a large customer base. This watch, we can aim at virtually everyone in the world, 8 billion people. Not everyone's going to buy it, but potentially, the potential market size, the customer base, is 8 billion. If we just get 1% of 8 billion buying it, we're going to have really high revenue. We're going to have loads of sales. So this is suitable for everyone. The other advantage of that is that we're going to suffer from economies we're going to benefit from economies of scale because we'll be making lots of watches. We'll be selling watches in high volume because there's so many people on the planet who are going to want them. Okay, we're not going to sell for high profit on each one. I'll come back to that in a moment, but we're going to sell lots of them. Because we're making lots, we'll benefit from economies of scale. We'll be buying the plastic in big bulk and we'll benefit from purchasing economies of scale. We'll be using the metal that goes with it in large quantities. We can have big conveyor belts that create it in flow, and that is very cost efficient, leading to economies of scale. So we will benefit from that. Mr. Robbins says, okay, sounds good. He says, we're also going to have strong brand recognition because this is going to be heard of. We've got potentially 8 billion people who can have this. So when people buy it, it's going to be all over the world. So we are going to ultimately be a brand that is known by everyone, not just a group of little surfers like Nuria's going to come up with. Everyone will know this brand. Maybe not everyone will buy one, but everyone will hear of it because we'll put the word out to everyone. Mr. Robinson says, that sounds good. I like the sound of this. Right, that sounds perfect. Let's go for it. Nuria says, wait, whoa, stop. There are disadvantages as well. It's not that simple. He says, go on then, over to you, Nuria. What are the problems then? She says, well, first, there's competition. Think about it. He says, like Casio. Do you think Casio is just going to roll over and let you undercut them and make a watch like those? The minute you start making a watch that goes in on there, this is a crowded market space. Loads of people who try to do this. You're not going to sneak into this watch market. It's going to be really difficult. Unlike the surf watch,
where Casio aren't really going to be bothered. They're not going to take much notice. So actually getting into this market, this Casio style standard watch, is going to be difficult. Secondly, he's glossed over it, but he's absolutely right. They're low profit margins. The only way you're going to pinch some business off Casio is if you keep the profit low. Okay, you can produce it cheaply because it doesn't have any tied data. It's just a standard watch. Let's say you can produce it for 10 euros, right? But you can only sell it for 12 euros because you've got to undercut the other competition like the Casio watch. And therefore, you're only making 2 euros per watch in profit. So your profit margins are low. Thirdly, your flexibility. You really haven't got much passion for the customers. The customers aren't going to be very passionate with it. These standardized products, they're all going to be the same. They're all going to be standard. And therefore, there's no one really going to love your watch. They're going to be buying your watch because of their decision with their head rather than the decision. They're going to say, oh, there's a cheap watch, it does the job, we'll buy it. But they won't love anything about it. Listen up to the benefits of the niche market surf watch, she says. He goes, all right, then over to you. What are the advantages of your watch? And she says, well, I mentioned it earlier, but there's less competition. No one's making these surf watches with Tide on it, so you're going to be getting into that market ahead of anyone else. And Casio, because you're not aiming at their whole market, they'll probably let you get on with it. They'll ignore you, so you can sneak in underneath them. They'll just let you get on with it. So less competition. It'll be easier to get started. Next, higher profit margins. Now, remember we said before with that rubbishy watch, she says, that it was 10 euros to 12 euros. Okay, right, there's no getting away from it. It will cost us more money to make these clever surf watches. It's going to cost us, let's say, 50 euros, but we will be able to charge 200 euros or more because, and that would give us a profit off each watch of 150. If we make it the cost of 50 and we sell it for 200, we're going to make 150 off each watch. That's going to offset the fact that perhaps we don't have many customers. Come back to it in a moment. So with 150 per watch, he said, why? Why would I be able to charge such a high amount? He said, because surfers will be buying it with their heart and not with their head. They're going to love it. They've been waiting for a watch. Every day they've had to put up with boring old standard watches that tells the time. Now this is something aimed at these surfers. They're going to get it as a treat. They're not just going to get it because they need a functional watch. They're going to be passionate. They're going to get it for their birthdays. They're going to be getting it for Christmas. They'll want to spend a little bit more money on it. And because of that, you can push the price higher and we can have higher profit margins. Mr. Robbins say, yeah, I like the idea of that. So thirdly, and there's more here to think about, but another big benefit is you're going to have better customer loyalty. So what do you mean? So, well, you know what? Just imagine that one of these surfers, they love this watch, they get it for their birthday, and then 6 months later, our watch breaks because they're in the sea all the time. He said, well, that would be terrible. They wouldn't buy it again. She said, you'd think so, but I reckon they would because they're buying with their heart and not with their head. They're going to forgive any little errors. They won't forgive it with the Casio mass market style watch because they just bought it because of it was cheap and it was standard. But with this surfer watch, we'll say, okay, well, it's another treat for my next birthday or for Christmas. It broke. They'll keep wanting the new models. They will be passionately buying it. He says, wow, I like the idea of this. This is sounding really good, Nuria. Maybe we should be going with that one. But then Mark steps in. He said, whoa, 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 don't forget about me. She's not telling you the full picture. We've also got some disadvantages. And the biggest one that she glossed over is it's a smaller market size. She did mention it roughly. Okay, you get more profit on each watch you sell. But think about it. I said we could potentially sell to a customer base of 8 billion. You can only sell to surfers. And I've done some research quickly. There's only about 20 million surfers in the whole world. So already it's much, much smaller. The number of sales are going to be much lower. You are not going to get 100% of all surfers. Even if you got 50%, which would be massive, you're only having a potential of 10 million. As opposed, if you got 50% of mass market, you've got 4 billion watches being sold. So big problem here is you've got a much smaller customer base, smaller market size. You also, as we mentioned before, you're not going to be benefiting from those economies of scale that we talked about earlier when you make this surf watch. You're going to be making bits and pieces. You're not going to have a massive, great, huge factory where you make 4 billion a year. You're going to be a much smaller operation, and therefore you won't benefit from buying plastic and metal and all those things in bulk. Thirdly, if you do succeed, like she says, well, what's to stop another company like Rip Curl stealing our success? Yes, okay, you snuck into it, but they can just come along, or Casio, if they change their mind, can say, actually, that looks pretty good. We're going to make a G-Shock watch where we aim at surfers. And then, what have you got? Your whole brand has vanished. It's not quite as safe as she said. You are vulnerable. If suddenly surfing goes massively out of fashion, even, then your watch company is going to die off to nothing. Whereas mass market, people are always going to need the time. And fourthly, you've got growth limitations. Do you want to be large scale? In mind that when you go mass market, you've got that potential of 8 billion. We can keep growing and growing. If you go down this surf route, if you set yourself up as a watch aimed at surfers or a range of watches aimed at surfers, you're always going to be limited to those 20 million surfers in the world. You're going to be restricted on how much you can grow. You can maybe get wealthy, but you're never going to be one of the biggest companies in the world. The boss sits down, he says, I don't know what to do. And at this point, this is the sort of exam questions they give you, the best exam questions. I don't know the answer to that. All that's left then is for you to sit down. Which would you go for? If you were this boss, weigh it up, evaluate. Should Mr. Robinson go for the niche surf watch, or should they go for the mass market Casio style watch? That's it for this video. If you've got any questions, write them below, and don't forget to like, share, follow. That really helps. Welcome to BizEd Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at market segmentation and how it's different from niche marketing. So we're going to be covering how markets can be segmented, and we're also going to be looking at the advantages and disadvantages of market segmentation. But as ever for this channel, I'm going to do it with a silly story, because that is the best way. No matter how clever you are, it's the best way to get it in your head and make it stay there. So let's get into it. In this one, we're going back in time, pre-political correctness to some extent. We're going back to the original Coca-Cola back, I don't know, 70s or something like that. It's going to be a version of the truth. I'm going to be basing it roughly right, but I'm going to embellish it for a better story. So, original Coca-Cola, that was the one that was red, the red can of Coca-Cola. Now, he calls in his marketing team. This is the CEO, the big boss of Coca-Cola. He calls them in, and he calls them in because their advert, this one that you may have seen over the time, the Christmas advert they made for Coca-Cola, has won awards. They said it's the best advert ever made. But the boss says to them, look, I've seen the advert, I know it's won the awards, but I didn't love it. It was okay, but I didn't love it. I don't know what people are going on about, and I don't think it's enough for me to increase the price of Coca-Cola. The marketing team say, what? Come on, be fair. What are you talking about? This is a brilliant advert. And he says, yeah, but I didn't really love it. And they said, look, you need to go back and watch the first video, magically in here. You need to go back and watch the difference between niche marketing and mass marketing. They say to him, look, you're Coca-Cola. You are a mass market product, red original Coca-Cola. When we make an advert, think about it. You think it's easy? It's near impossible. When we make an advert, we have to make sure that the mass market, everyone likes it. When we make a product, everyone has to like it. When we have to make packaging, everyone has to like it. That is near impossible. We can't even agree on this room, and we got to make the whole world agree. Think about it. We got to make a little old lady in China like the drink and the advert. We got to make a cool teenager in America like the drink. We got to make a billionaire in Russia like the drink, and we've even got to make priests in southern Spain like the drink and like the advert, and not offend anyone. It's so difficult to do that. And he says, oh, okay, right, well, I want to. You've got to fix it. You've got to fix this. I want to have passion in there. They said, but you're getting the benefits of mass market. You've got a huge potential market to sell to. We get all of these. No, he says, I want the benefits. I want
to somehow find a way that we get the passion of niche marketing. I want everything, not just the benefits of mass marketing, I want the benefits of niche marketing that you showed me in the video as well. Go away, you've got a week, think about it. So off they go. And they think about it for a week and they come back with the concept and they say, we've got it. Let me introduce you, CEO of Coca-Cola, to market segmentation. He says, what's that? Well, definitions for the exam. Market segmentation is the process of identifying different segments within a market and targeting different products or services towards them. He goes, what? I don't get the definition. They say, well, look, okay, when we look at Coca-Cola, remember we were saying that everyone has to like it. Why don't we break them down? We can still have our mass market red Coca-Cola, but maybe we should create another version of Coke that just aims at one specific subsection, one niche as it were, within it. We could get different ones. So let's separate out the mass market into the different categories. He said, well, how could you do that? Loads of different ways, but we'll cover the 5 big ones. He said you could look at age. Instead of aiming at everyone, we could have Coca-Cola for everyone, and then we could make another version of Coca-Cola that's just aiming at old people at a specific age, or at young people. We could do that. We could aim at income. Instead of aiming at everyone, we could aim only at rich people. We could have a version of Coke rich for rich people. Standard Coke would stay as mass market. We could have a segmented one for rich people. Location, we could make mass market Coke, red Coke, and then we could have a special version for the people in France, let's say. Gender, we could have mass market Coke and then we could make one just for men perhaps, or even lifestyle. We could have mass market Coke and then we could aim another Coke at really adventurous outdoors people. He said, okay, well that's good. I like it. Off you go then. And they said, well, hang on, who do you want to aim at? Which segment? We'll keep mass market, we'll keep the red one, but who do you want us to aim at? And he said, I don't know, I don't care. Just I want the passion of niche marketing. So they go away for another week and they come back and they say, have you done it? And they say, ta-da, we've designed our product, we've got it sorted. We will introduce to you, and this is fairly true, this is pretty much what happened. We introduce to you Diet Coke. He said, what are you doing? That's not the red can, that's not the set. No, we're going to keep the red can, don't worry, we'll keep mass market Coke, but we're going to launch a second version of Coke, which is Diet Coke. And it's going to have this silver can, it's going to have less calories, and it's going to be called Diet Coke. And he said, okay, who are you aiming at? And they said, well, you decide, because let me show you the adverts. And these adverts are real, by the way. These are true, these are from my youth. He says, here we go. That's your advert. What? He said, tall, dark, tasty, he's not bad either. We've got a sort of naked man on there. He goes, yeah, any more? You go, yeah, this one and this one. In fact, we're going to make loads of adverts where sort of men open Diet Coke and then spill it down themselves and then just take off their shirt. And he goes, why would men want to see that? And they go, that's the point. They wouldn't. Diet Coke is going to be separated by gender. We're going to aim Diet Coke at women. They go, isn't that sexist? Back in the 80s, let's not worry about that. We are going to have Diet Coke specifically aimed at women. He said, well, is that helpful? And he said, absolutely. But we've got to tell you there's disadvantages as well. So we've drawn up this. Here we go. This new campaign. The advantages of this. The adverts are now so much easier to make. Instead of trying to keep everyone happy, what we do, and what they did if you look back on the internet, is you just get a good looking man, you take his shirt off, you pay the same music that you'll see on the adverts every single time, and next month we need a new one, just get a new sexy man to take his shirt off. And we can keep doing that. That advertising will keep our target audience happy and they'll love it. Not only that, they're going to love it so much that they're going to be talking about it and even printing off posters that we're also going to produce, and they're going to put it up in children's classrooms, just like in my classroom when I was at school. Every classroom I had the Diet Coke man that the girls would put up on the wall. So people are going to be really, really passionate about that. Secondly, it's going to be so much easier. It'll be easier to make the product, lower sugar, because that's what all women want. Easier to make the advert.
This is going to all lead to increased customer satisfaction. The women are going to be happier about this. They're going to like the advert. They're going to feel connected. They're going to buy the product now with their heart and not just with their head. That passion you were saying, they're going to love it. They're going to be excited for the drink, excited for the advert. And the best of all, that means we can charge a higher price. So we'll keep the other can of Coke at $1, but with Diet Coke, the women will love it so much they'll be prepared to pay €1.30 and they won't complain. Also, we've got less competition. No one's actually made a fizzy drink specifically for women. We've got loads of fizzy drinks. This is a gap in the market. If we get this out there, we keep mass market Coca-Cola, we get this little one, we're going to suddenly give women something to drink that they can identify. He said, well, I like the sound of all of this. It essentially means more money. What are the disadvantages? Well, they say there's no getting away from it. It's higher costs. We're now going to have the original Coke factory still open. We're going to have to make another factory with another ingredients, with another marketing department, and we're going to have to create all of these things. That's extra cost. We're going to have to diversify our production. Normal Coke factories, original Coke, and Diet Coke. We're going to have to be very careful, and it's going to cost money. We also need to worry that is it profitable? Are the women going to take to it? Maybe our segment is too small. If we only went just for women aged 15, there might not be enough of them in the world and it might not work. So we've got to do this carefully and make sure that we appeal to all women. Difficult thing to do. Thirdly, another disadvantage, it just makes everything harder. It's just more complex. You know, before you just had to see Coke adverts and you just had to sign off one budget for Coca-Cola. Now you're going to have multiple departments. Your organizational structure is all going to change. We're going to have a marketing department for Coke. We're going to have a marketing department for Diet Coke. We're going to have to change the organizational structure. He says, this sounds stressful, but I want it. Let's go for it. And he does go for it. And that did happen. And that's what's happened to Coke over the time. This has continued. We have the original Coca-Cola that was mass market, still is pretty much mass market. Over time, things have changed as Pepsi Max tried to get in there. And I'm not going to tell you about that. You can maybe find out how that fits in. But we've got 3 other different ones. Diet Coke is changed over time, but was originally aimed at women. Pepsi Max, find out about that. But then there is Coke Zero that came in later, aiming at men, actually. So again, segmentation by gender, these 2 things. It was so successful. They then tried another option that you may not have seen because it didn't really work, but this one was aimed at the health, lifestyle market, the lifestyle side of this. This was seen as healthy Coke, where it used natural plants and things in it. Problem is, no one really bought it. That was one that didn't really work, and it faded out pretty quickly. So that's it. That's market segmentation. I hope it helps. Don't forget to like and follow. There's more videos to come on marketing. Welcome to BizEd Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at market research. Again, a common topic across all of the syllabuses. We're going to be covering everything that's on my screen here, but it's a lot for me to talk through. So let's just get into it. As ever, it's going to have a silly story so we can understand the issues rather than just try and remember them. So here's my silly story. We're coming back to a Rennie Smith who's connected with another one of my videos. She is the head of marketing for Apple. Now, in this story, for whatever reason, she's decided to have a bit of a go at Ian, who is head of market research for Apple. And she comes up and she says to Ian, what do you actually do? I never see you doing anything. How very unfair of a Rennie. So he's got to justify why his job is so important. And he says, well, first of all, you've got to know what I do. By definition, market research is the process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting information about market, customers, and competitors. She says, yeah, that's nice. That's all of the management speak, but what do you actually do first? He says, that's so unfair. Look, think about it like this. When you want to know about the customers for Apple, when you want to know what they want, how much they're prepared to pay, what colors they like, you have to come and see me. I'm the one who has the information, collects the information, and tells you everything about our customers. Secondly, when you want to know about the market, the mobile phone market that we operate in, let's say, I'm the one telling you whether it's growing year on year or whether it's shrinking. I'm warning you, watch out, there's new trends happening. I'm the one who has all of those statistics. I'm crucial for you. She says, okay, all right, what else? He said, well, the marketing as a whole. You're always coming to me. When you're having branding decisions, what color should it be? Then you're coming to me and saying, well, for our target audience, for our typical customers, do they prefer gray or do they prefer it in gold? I'm the one who gives you the evidence-backed answers. I tell you about the packaging, what they like and what they don't like, the promotion methods that they will fall for, and the distribution, where they like to sell it. I am crucial, and I'm not done yet, he says. I also am crucial because I'm looking into the future. I'm telling you what is going to happen in the future, not just what the customers like now, but what they're going to like in a year. All of that comes from my hard research. And she says, all right, maybe I'm being a bit unfair. Sounds like your job is pretty important. Okay. And he said, but why does it take you so long? What are you doing all of the time? And he said, well, to understand that, how I get my information, how I collect it, you need to understand about sampling. People don't get, it's actually a bit of a science here. So, she said, what's sampling? He said, well, I'll tell you and then I'll demonstrate it. Sampling is selecting a small group of people from the target market to represent the whole population. He said, don't really understand it. He said, well, don't worry, I'm going to demonstrate it. Okay, he says, let's imagine we've got these 10 people lined up, and these 10 people represent the target audience of Apple. This is a distribution. If it was just these 10 people that bought phones from Apple, how would we get information? If we wanted to interview them to find out about colors and what they like, who would you, Irene, I'm going to put you on the spot, who would you interview? Now, we'll come back to the fact that there's only 10 in a moment, but if we put this to her and she said, you haven't got time to interview anyone, who would you interview? Go on, do it. And she thinks about it and she says, right, okay. She looks at the list. She says, yeah, I'll pick that person. I'll pick that person. I'll pick that person, that person, and that person. And he said, well, that's 5. Okay, 5 out of the 10. We'll come back. You're going to have to justify that. He said, do you think that's good? Do you think we get good results? She says, well, yeah, I just picked those 5. But look at it, look at the picture. He says, not at all. You'd be terrible at market research. He said, because that was not fair. You just picked all of the friendly looking ones. What about these scary characters at the back? You just ignored them because you didn't want to go up and interview them and ask them questions or whatever. But they are crucial. If you don't ask those people, then we're not going to get a full picture of who's buying our phones. You've completely distorted the information. And she said, oh, okay, I hadn't thought of that. What should I do? And he said, well, there's loads of methods, but you have to make your sampling methods as fair as possible. We want it to be fair, not putting your own bias and bigotry into the research. He said, one simple thing you could do is you could close your eyes and choose them randomly. That would be called random sampling. So she says, all right, I'll do that. I'll close my eyes and I'll just point, and then the ones that I point at, well, that will be better. So she does that, and she points at this one, at this one, at this one, at that one, and that one. She points at those 5 people. She says, right, brilliant. Okay, no bias in there. Bit scary, but I've got to go and interview those people. He said, hold on. Do you think that's perfect? Now, he says, well, I didn't put any bias. It wasn't my fault. It just appeared randomly. He said, yes, that is good. You eliminated bias from the sampling. It's fairer, but take a look at that list. Does that now, in other words, represent the whole of our market? He says, well, I think so, it's fair. So, well, look, you haven't interviewed any women in this situation. You just have picked all of the men. She said, no, I didn't pick, it was random. Yes, random is fair, but it doesn't mean it's great and it's not going to be representative. And she said, oh, go on, what do I do now then? So, well, you should look at a representative sample. He said, this time, I want you to really sit down and think. I want you to be intelligent about it. I want you to think about the makeup of our market and use your brain to decide who to interview. And she said, okay, I'm going to use my brain. I'm going to think about it. And she says, well, okay, looks about 50-50 split of men and women. I want a quota of men and a quota of women. I'll decide upon that. And he says, right, I'm going to choose that one, then I've got a woman in there, that one, that one, that one. Okay, he said, right, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. He said, yep, that seems to be more representative. And she said, but hang on, haven't I put bias back into this? And he says, yes, that's why my job is so difficult. Although now it is representative, it's back with the first problem of bias. And he said, well, what's the solution then? What do you do? And he goes, well, there isn't one, actually. That's why my job is difficult. We're constantly trying to balance, when collecting our data, fair and representative, which means that we always have to be careful with our data. But he said, you fell into a trap because, yes, my job is very difficult. I'm trying to work out the world and we've got 1 billion customers. But in yours, you were foolish. You should have picked up earlier that sampling, although it sounds good, you didn't need to sample at all. If we want to know if it was only 10 people, what you actually should be doing is asking all 10. Your sample size was too small. Why did you ask 5? If I only had to find out from 10 people, I would ask all of them. I wouldn't sample. Sampling isn't good, it's just necessary because in the real world, we can't fly around the world and interview 1 billion people. It would take too long and cost too much money. He says, okay, I understand this concept of sampling. Right, what else have you got from that? Don't sample. So, well, once we've got the sampling done, once we choose a group that is fair and representative, we then have 2 options of collecting market research. The first is primary research, and then we're going to look at secondary research. Okay, what do you mean by primary research? Well, primary research is the process of collecting original first-hand data for specific purpose rather than using existing data collected by others. So this is where I have to, Ian says, I have to actually collect this data. It's never existed. I have to get on the phone to people. I have to go out into the shops. I have to email them. I have to go and interview people just like you did with that group. That would have been primary market research. There are advantages and disadvantages to this because nothing is perfect. The advantages: if I ask people specifically about the taste, then I can ask a very specific question that we're looking for. If you want to know whether they prefer this shade of blue or that shade of blue, I can show exactly those colors. We can get very specific information with primary. Second, I know it's up to date because I've just done it right now or yesterday. I know it is up to date, not always the case with other methods. It also can provide detailed insights. It doesn't have to be quantitative, it can be, which is where we end up with numbers. You can actually get qualitative information where I can just ask people, what do you think? And then I can record the whole conversation of what they've said, where they've said, I quite like it, I kind of like it. Not just quantitatively 7 out of 10. For primary, we can get more descriptive and they might tell us something we weren't even expecting to receive. But there are disadvantages because otherwise we'd always do primary. What are the disadvantages, he says? Well, it's expensive, of course, because I actually have to go out and do all of this. That takes time. It's expensive because I might have to pay to collect the information in one of the methods we're going to see in a moment. I have to pay for people's time. It's also time consuming for me, and my time is money because I'm very important at this company and you have to pay me a lot of money. So time consuming costs money. And I can't be doing other things while I'm doing this. And then, of course, as you just proved, there's no perfect sampling method. They all have limitations. So there is the risk of bias and inaccuracy. If I don't do my results well, it can all be a little bit rubbish. He says, okay, what about the different methods? What are the different methods of primary research? Now, at this point, I'm going to say, I'm not going to go through all of this in huge amounts of detail. Pause the video now and have a read of the screen or find the detailed notes on bizedmadesimple.com. But I really think the key to this, and they are common questions, is to understand what each one of those are. And then you can use common sense to work out the advantages and disadvantages. So as he's justifying it, the first, some of the methods of primary research. There's more, but these are the main ones that are getting covered now. So the first thing he can do is we can do questionnaires. Now you've all seen these. These are handed out either on paper or they're done online on social media. I occasionally put one on my YouTube, a little questionnaire for someone to fill in. The key advantages you can read there, but they're quick and cheap often to distribute. The disadvantages, well, do people take them seriously? We can see here, some people don't fill them in at all. People often don't have a chance to qualify their answer, say, well, I had to choose yes or no. I didn't really mean yes or no. They could look at that. The second is an interview. Rather than filling in a pen and paper or electronic questionnaire, we actually go up and interview. You've probably done this at school in geography, where you have to go up to someone on the street and say, can I ask you some questions? The advantage of that, it produces in-depth. We can have more qualitative answers, that word I mentioned before. They can clarify, they can go back and forth and say, what did you mean by that? And they can give extra information. The disadvantages is time consuming. You can usually only ask a few people. And it depends on the skill of the interviewer. If the interviewer goes up and says things like, what do you think about this fantastic company? That's a leading question, and that can completely ruin your results. Focus groups. Now this one's one that often people get confused with what it is. So focus groups is when, just like before, when she was picking out a sample from that group, rather than just going up to them on the street and saying, please help me out here, you could actually pay for their time. You could go and find those 5 people and say, look, we're not getting you now, but would you mind coming to our office on Monday and we'll pay you €100 to sit there, look at our products and give us the feedback for that. So that's a small focus group where they get paid to take it seriously. The advantage of that, well, it generates qualitative insights. They're going to take it seriously, more so than when you get asked in a supermarket. You just fill it in quickly most of the time. But if you're feeling paid, you're paid to do this, you're going to be more honest. The discussions can bring in new ideas because those 5 people sit around here. So they're going to give more than just a simple answer to a question. They're going to keep talking back and forth, and that can have great insight into it. Very useful for testing products rather than just yes or no answers. The disadvantages, it's expensive. The small group, the 5 might not represent, the sample size is often going to be too small. You can't get hundreds into a room. And often they can be dominated by one particular person is a problem. So if this person here in my example is really, really outspoken, the rest can get dragged along. I really don't like it, he's saying, and the rest is just agreeing with him, and that can distort the results. Finally, in this one that we need to know, observation. So observation is this one, where the guy sneaks out, or the market researcher, Ian in this case, will be sneaking out and just observing what's going on. So he could be looking in a supermarket, not speaking to anyone, but just watch what products they pick up, watching them walk past a product. Do they pick it up? Do they look at it? Do they put it back? And then they record that information down in a form. The advantage is it records actual consumer behavior. It's real, it's true. They might say, oh, I definitely pick it up when you ask them, but then when you see them walk past it, they don't. So it has real behavior. It avoids bias from them. It's useful for studying shopping patterns. However, the big disadvantage is it doesn't say why. We don't know what's going on. Maybe that person walked past because they were thinking of other things, they were in a rush. And there's ethical concerns. Is it all right to just spy on people? So things to think about there. They're all primary methods of research. Let's go forward then. He said, we're not done there. There's also secondary research. What's that, she says? Well, secondary research is the use and analysis of existing data that's already been collected, usually by other organizations. So for this one, Ian says, this is where often I don't need to leave my desk. I just go on and I Google things in the past, but now we're in the world of AI. We don't need to do that. Deep research, go and have a look at some of my AI videos. Deep research is absolutely gold for this, but we're using AI to find data that's already been collected by someone else for whatever reason, and then we use that to help the business. So in the past, they were experts at searching through the internet. Now they're experts at using AI to search through the internet and get all of the results. So the advantage of this, it's often cheap or free. There's a big caveat to one of those methods that I'm going to show you in a moment, but it's often cheap or free. Just in the past, to Google it or to AI search it, it's a quick method, much quicker than going out and sitting in a supermarket and observing everyone. Quick and large amounts of data are available. You can get huge amounts of data from the internet, of course, and even more so with AI. So really advantageous secondary. The reality is you probably, of course, don't do either or, you do both. Just like you when you're collecting results in your geography lessons. You probably do primary and also a bit of secondary data. The disadvantage is, of course, it may be out of date. The data you collect off the internet may have been collected 10 years ago, and that has little bearing on the company today. It's obviously not going to be specific. You ask, like, do they like blue or green, but it might not be the specific shade of blue that you are exactly looking at for your brand. So you just get generally people prefer green and they don't know about your specific blue. And the reliability may be uncertain because you don't know who collected it. Were they good at it? Was the sample size large enough? Were they just foolish and not very good at it? All of those can create problems. Now, same again, we're going to look at the different methods of secondary research. Pause the screen, the video now, or go onto the website to have a look at all this information, because I'm not going to read all of it, I'd bore you to death. But these are some of the key things. Again, we're going to try and understand it. So one of the main ways of getting secondary research is looking up on competitor websites. Apple would be keeping an eye on the Samsung website. Have they published any data? How much are they selling their phones for? What's the new color of their mobile phone? They'd be looking at that. The advantage, it's free and easy and quick to do. It helps look at their strategy compared to their others and helps them price things, all sorts of things. The disadvantages, well, it might not be complete. If you're looking on the competitors, they might not be delivering all of the accurate information because they don't have to. It's their website. The information, of course, may be biased. We are selling it for this price, and maybe that's not quite true. They're just trying to make themselves look good. And again, we don't know. It may be outdated. Maybe they collected their information, the competitor, 5 years ago, and you, as Apple, want to be up to date. The second one is going to government sources. Governments collect information about their citizens yearly, generally through what's called census data. They send it out in the post and they say how many children have you got and your average income. They get that rough data. Now, you can get that information off the government. Why is that advantageous? Well, you'll get lots of information. You can get information about the whole population in charts and graphs very quickly. And it should be reliable because it's government collected. You have to answer it honestly. And it's usually free. The governments have a website. You can look them up and you can get that information. The disadvantage is, again, it's outdated quickly because they don't do it all of the time. And it's often too general. They're not really looking at your business. They're just giving you categories of data. And it's not always relevant to the research. Next, there are market reports even. This is the one I said I'd come back to. When I said it was cheap, well, these are not cheap. These can be very expensive. If you look online, there's market research agencies, and they create all of this information, and these can be incredibly expensive. Thousands and thousands they can cost, where someone has set up a company to be an expert on research, and they say, we'll give you the data all about the people's favorite color. We've interviewed millions of people, we've got that data, but if you want that data from us, you're going to have to buy it for 20,000. So that can be very, very expensive. I've gone into the disadvantage already. But the advantage is it's detailed because they are professionals at doing it. It will be a professional research, well created, useful for identifying trends. Disadvantages, it can be very expensive. Same again, it may not target your exact market and it could be out of date. All in all, those companies are struggling now with AI coming in, doing deep research. They're filling a gap in there because these reports can come out, and that's bringing the cost of these things down. But I digress. Finally, in this one, trade magazines, specific magazines about the industry that they're in. So for this one, it could be Mobile Phone Monthly magazine for Apple or something like that. I don't know, but a specific magazine to do with the industry that they're in. That's what we mean by trade. So advantage of that, that's going to provide industry-specific news. It's going to report on which countries are growing interest in mobile phones with cameras and battery life and etc. You can identify trends. It's easy to access all of the information about the industry. It'll all be in one place. In that magazine, it would have Samsung and Apple and Motorola and all the other phone companies in there. The disadvantage, again, it will be biased because it's to create an entertaining story in there. It often lacks statistical data. It will be more sort of theory rather than just a boring set of graphs. And reliability may vary. Who's to say that this magazine is actually very good at collecting market research? So you would use a mix of all of these things. Okay, well, let's go back to Ian and Irene. And she says, well, you've sold me. This is brilliant. In that case, your job is wonderful, and I'm going to trust your market research from now on. Whatever you say goes. And he said, well, hang on. Let's not get carried away. No, you shouldn't trust me. I'm good at my job. But just as I've tried to prove to you with sampling, I'm not perfect. We shouldn't always just blindly follow the market research. No matter what we do, we're always going to have mistakes and things can affect the accuracy of it. And she said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, let's finish on this. He said, the sample size. There's a billion customers for Apple. I can't interview all of them. If I only interview 100 of them, then that's just too small. So, but I can't afford, I haven't got the time to do any more. So we have to, that can affect the accuracy. If the sample size is too small, you maybe shouldn't trust it that much. The method I use, I just showed you loads of methods. None of them were perfect. They all had advantages and disadvantages. Maybe it's wrong because I got it wrong that day. I chose the wrong method and it distorted the result. Maybe some people, I got one of the new ones in the office to create the questionnaire, and the questionnaire was biased. It was leading questions like we mentioned earlier in the story, and that distorted all the results. The respondent's honesty. Think about that. When you've been in the supermarket and someone says, do you want to try some cheese? And they say, what do you think? Afterwards, have you ever said, that's disgusting? I hope not. I don't. I go, yum, I'm just off to buy that cheese. I don't want to hurt their feelings in those questionnaires. So we don't always get a true picture just because the person has said it, because humans generally want to try and be accommodating to someone. So that can distort your results and not much we can do about it there. And also the timeliness of data. It takes me years to collect some of this data. By the time I've collected it, AI and new things have appeared on the scene and it's already out of date. So yes, you need my information, but never trust it 100%. Always be cynical of it and say, what do I think? Should I trust it or should I not? How much should we be influenced by this data? That's it for the topic. It was a long one on market research. The final syllabus point that we covered, of course, is the analysis of the presentation of results. Now, I'm not going to show it in here, but they're going to use bar charts and pie charts, and you're often going to be using those in the questions to understand that bar chart and say, how does this affect the results? How does this affect what the business should do? That's it. Hope it was helpful. Any questions, write them in the comments below, and don't forget to go onto the learning platform BizEd Made Simple. Welcome to BizEd Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at brand. What is it and why is it so important to businesses? Now, before we get into it, here's a little question for you. You're probably a little bit like my students at my school, and they have two main questions for me at the moment. One, why is my face plastered all over every YouTube video and all over the learning platform BizEd Made Simple? Do I just love seeing my face? And secondly, more importantly, they ask, do you actually have any other shirts, sir? Is that the only one you've got? Now, I do have another shirt, and I don't actually like putting my face over everything, believe it or not. The reason I do it, hopefully you'll be able to figure out during this video. So, there I am as evidence, plastered all over the place with this very same shirt. But let's get into first the definition. What do we mean by brand? So brand and brand image is the name, the symbol, the sign, the design, or the combination of all of these that identifies a product or business and differentiates it from the competitors. So it is a really important thing. That's jargon. We're going to come back to how to explain what that means. But a brand is not just a logo, as you see here. It also includes reputation, image, and feelings that customers have about the product. Now, straight from my first screen, you should have been probably feeling a little bit uncomfortable by what I've got up here. This, your brain will have already worked out, is not quite right. You'll know straight away what this is referring to. Of course, it's McDonald's, but it didn't feel the same because it was in blue. Now, if we swap those to the right colors, not only would you recognize it more clearly, you actually might even start feeling a little bit hungry. That's the power of brand. They put millions into doing that. All of these should have felt a little bit off. Even if you don't know what this company is, something about it will feel uncomfortable. You can write in the comments below what colors they're meant to be if you want. Now, so how is it important? Let's go to a silly story as ever. And this silly story is going to be based on a superb fashion designer, Joe. He knows everything about fashion. He's brilliant at designing, but he knows nothing about business in my story. So, using all his fashion experience, he comes up with something fantastic. He designs shoes, and he said these are the most fashionable shoes you can create. They look like that. So he puts these shoes together, he says everything about them is cool, and he then passes them on to someone else in the product design company. And they go off, they don't notice anything strange about it because they're inexperienced too, and they decide to put it into this shop. So this shoe goes into this shop. Now, later on, while it's in the shop, we have a group of teenagers walking past the shop. They see it in the shop window and they start teasing it. They look at it there and they say, look how ridiculous those clown shoes are. What is going on? I'd never buy those. They're so embarrassing. Now, the owner of the company is walking past and he recognizes Joe's work and he's furious. He says, hang on a minute, what's gone on here? There's a problem because the owner of Joe's business is not just any old business. In fact, the owner is Nike. These are Nike shoes. So he goes back to Joe and he says, Joe, what the heck have you done? Those shoes, you've missed our logo. You've missed our brand off those shoes. You have got to put the Nike tick onto it. Now, Joe gets all confused, but he puts the Nike tick on reluctantly. He says it's not going to make any difference. And of course, you should know it makes all the difference. So straight away, once it has the tick on, they're not just going in any old shoe shop. They go straight into the coolest fashion shop. And now we have the same teenagers walking past. Identical shoes just with the tick on it. And they look at it and they go, wow, they're so cool. So nothing has changed, as we said here. Nothing has changed about the shoe, only the brand. But it's completely changed who buys it, how much it sells for, and how fast it sells. So let's go back to the sort of exam questions they ask. Why is brand so important? Well, if we relate it to that, first of all, the brand differentiates it. It makes those shoes stand out. In the other shop, they were just any old shoe. The others looked a bit funny as well. Nothing about those stood out. The minute that you put that tick on it, it makes them stand out as not just an ordinary shoe, they're Nike shoes. Now, we also have customer loyalty. If you think of those shoes, those children in my example didn't actually like the style just purely for the style's sake, but they were loyal to Nike. So even though they didn't like the style, once it had the tick on, they thought they had to like it and it suddenly became cool. So customers are loyal even when the style changes. The next thing, of course, once you put it in that high fashion shop in the second example, you can push the prices up because you're not going to sell a Nike shoe for 20 euros. That Nike shoe can suddenly sell for 150 to 200 euros. You can get away with it because you are trading off the brand name of Nike. The other one, we can have a shorter introduction stage. This is in the product life cycle. But when we're launching products, in fact, Nike, usually if you don't have an unbranded product, it takes a while before sales take off and people hear about it or know that it's good. Nike doesn't have that problem. All they have to do is put an advert out saying, we're going to launch these new shoes. They can put some pictures out. And if they say a date, they might actually have a lot of people waiting outside the shops to get it. So from day one, they can have very high sales of their products because they're branded. Final one, perhaps less important, but it attracts better employees. Really, if Joe was this expert designer, he wouldn't just go to any old shoe shop. He probably only went there because it was Nike. That is prestigious. So you can get the best employees even without paying them a lot of money. So there are 5 main reasons why brand is important. We'll just finish on my face again and my shirt again. So have you worked out why I'm always wearing the same shirt? Put it in the comments. See you on the next video. Welcome to Biz Ed Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at a little marketing topic. A quick one, the role of packaging. A quick one, but an important one. As ever, definition on the screen. We can see packaging is the design and production of a container or wrapping of a product that protects it, promotes it, provides information, and makes it convenient to use. Good definition. That kind of tells you everything we need to know, but let's explain it. So explaining it as ever with a silly story. This silly story is going to be about Josie, who, very creative, went to university to study packaging, but was lazy and missed a lot of lectures. So she only got a few of the things understood. Now, she gets a job at a company I've made up as always, and this job is called Thai Delights. They make delicious Thai curries, a really good product, and these Thai curries are ready meals, the sort that you buy in the supermarket and then you take them home, put them in the microwave, heat them up, and they're ready to eat. So it's a ready meal. Now the first thing she says, okay, I've got to do some market research, see another video, but market research. So she goes over to the supermarket and she says, what are ready meals like? How are they sold? And she finds a scene like this. She looks at it and she goes, wow, this is brilliant. Look at all these ready meals. They're so boring. I know what I'm going to do. She's straight away got an idea. She says, this is going to get me a promotion. I'm brilliant. And she says, I know that
Packaging should promote the brand. Have a look at what brand is in another video, and it should be eye-catching so that people will be drawn to it, pick it up, take it home and buy it. And she creates, look at that, a fantastic packaging using the brand colors of pink, and it's really, really eye-catching because it's a pyramid shape. Have a little think. Do you think she gets the promotion? She says, yeah, definitely, because you look how boring the shelf is, and mine is going to stand out. Everyone's going to love it. Seems to be a good idea. Pause the video and have a discussion about whether you think whether you think it's a good idea. Well, let's go on with the story. Let's have a look. Okay, fair enough. It promotes the brand. That is one of the things that packaging should do. It's nice and pink, it stands out. It's eye-catching. Okay, she's done well on those first two. But packaging has to do other jobs, fairly boring jobs perhaps. The next is, it's got to provide information. Her package doesn't have any of that. It doesn't say if it's gluten-free or how many calories, and that would make it illegal. We have to have all of that boring nutritional information on the packaging. So she's massively failed in that regard there. Secondly, it's got to be easy to transport. Have a little think about this pyramid. It's true, the pyramid would stand out, but why would it stand out? Well, because boxes and rectangles are easy to transport. How would you transport a triangle? Not easy. You can't stack a triangle on top of each other. So not easy to transport. Second, it's got to be convenient to shops. And again, because it's a triangle, it's not convenient to shops at all. They can't, once someone comes in and buys this product, they've got to stack it up again because they can't put, if you look at the other ones, there could be 10 to 15 going back to the shelf, and shelf space is a premium. They can only fit one meal per section of space on the shelf, so it is not convenient at all. Next, it's got to protect the product. We could say, well, pyramids, they're a nice shape, but let's say that she has an idea and she says, haha, but you can stack them. What you need to do with these triangles, just like when my class say it, they say, ha, but you can turn it upside down, just like, oh, went the wrong way, just like that. You could stack them in and then you could transport them and then they could go on the shelf and problem solved. Well, definitely not problem solved, is it? Because they would all be upside down and broken and it would look disgusting within the product. So it would not protect the product if you were doing that. So another fail. Finally, be convenient. Well, triangles are not convenient, especially with carrier bags. They rip through the sides, but there's something else. This ready meal is meant to go in a microwave and it doesn't fit in a microwave in my example. That's a terrible shape. There is a reason that all of these look so boring and they are rectangular. It's pyramids don't work. So they are the core things for the role of packaging. Needs to have all of those, and I guess she needs to be sacked. That's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you on the next video. Welcome to Biz Ed Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at new product development and the advantages and disadvantages of that. Now, in this video, I'm going to be basing it, somewhat unusually for me, on a pretty much true story, and I'm going to be looking at the example of Apple. Now, I think one of the things that explains this best is the film Jobs, which is based on Apple's history, and it's got a great story going through. So go away and watch that. I'm going to give you a brief summary of some of the things that went on and why it's relevant. So, Steve Jobs was the creator, one of the co-founders of Apple, and he was known as a very innovative guy who has always wanted to create new things. Now, in around about 1980, they recruited a new CEO over here who was called John Sculley. You can see it all in the movie. And there was a fight that ensued, a big fight that ensued between Steve Jobs and John Sculley. And what the fight was all about was this. It was about new product development. Steve Jobs was very much in favor of continually creating new products. He created the Macintosh. It was good. It was going well. But he wanted more and more money to be spent on designing new things. He went on to make iPods and iPads and all of those sorts of things, and AirPods. But John Sculley was more conservative. He was just saying, the Macintosh is doing doing well. We need to keep the money in just producing the Macintosh. So a big fight ensued. We're going to go back and look at what were the arguments in those times of those two people, and that'll help us cover the advantages and the disadvantages. So, the advantages that Steve Jobs would have been saying, it says we're going to create entirely new markets. If we just keep creating the laptops, we keep it for people who want laptops. If we go ahead and make new things, who know what at that point, but we're going to get people who like music when he went on and people who like telephones, not just the computer market. So he said, if we just keep doing laptops, we'll never ever get into new markets, and that's limited. He also said, if we create new stuff, it reduces the dependence on the existing products. You're putting it all on the Macintosh. If the Macintosh doesn't work for whatever reason, if someone creates a better laptop than us, then we've got nothing. If we have different products in different sectors, we diversify the risk, and therefore we can have less dependence and more security in the future. He also said, look, if we just stay the same every year, if we just make the Macintosh, we're just a boring standard computer company. If we keep creating new things, taking a bit of risk, being at the cutting edge, we're going to have a brand of innovation, which is what he wanted. And with that strong brand of innovation, we can charge higher prices. So that will really help us. He also said, the key thing is, this is about driving long-term growth. You just make Macintoshes. We're fine now, we can make a lot of money, but what do we do in 10 years' time? That'll all be outdated. If you want a long-term health of the company, we have to keep spending money in creating new things and looking into the future. They were the points he made. But he came up against criticism, not just from John Scully, but actually the investors, and investors are often accused of short-termism, you don't need that term, but they look at the now, they want profits now, they don't really care about long into the future often. So he was arguing back, yeah, but it diverts focus. Stop looking at creating some little mobile phone or headphones or whatever you may be doing at the time. Just focus on making the Macintosh perfect. We need all our attention going in on that. He said it'll also create complexity in the business. We have to have different teams, a team that's looking at mobile phones, a team that's looking at headphones, a team that's looking at laptops. It's all really confusing and therefore more likely to make mistakes. He said you can damage short-term, or you will damage short-term financial performance. While we're having to spend loads of money doing market research on iPhones or what's going on in the future, that's less money in the retained profit. We could have been keeping that and giving it to investors. Instead, we're spending on something that we don't even know what it is, looking into the future. And fourthly, perhaps his biggest point, there's no guarantee of success. Just because you want to go and look up a new product, we could spend all that money, it could completely fail. Not only have we wasted all of the market research, you could completely damage our successful brand. One new product comes out and it spoils it for everything. Now, who won in that? That's a really good story in itself. Go and watch the film. It's going to be talking about control and private limited companies and public limited companies. So much good stuff in there to learn business studies, but I'm not going to spoil the story. See you on the next video. Welcome to BizEd Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at the product life cycle. We're going to cover everything that I've got on my screen there, but as ever, I'm going to do it with a silly story so that you can fully understand complex topics, not just remember it. Now, this silly story is going to be based around a made-up company as ever, FFS, which was the first fidget spinner. You remember fidget spinners, those things that you spin around, like on the picture on my screen. Now, in my story, we're going to imagine that there only was one company, and it was designed and managed by this guy, Mr. Heavy. Now, Mr. Heavy is old, has run the company, and he's also recruited a new marketing manager who's called Emily. Now, I've called him Mr. Heavy because he is heavy in my story, and here's a puzzle. He says to Emily, do you know the difference between me and my product? And that's what we're going to try and discover. Now, Emily rolls her eyes and thinks, here we go, what's the story? And he says, no, I am going to be heavy, I'm going to explain. Now, the difference, he says that I have had a long life, yet my product, the fidget spinner, sadly had a very short life. She goes, brilliant, well done there. So what does he mean by that? Now, he says that it had a very short
life. And he refers to it as life because we can think of products having a life. They do follow the similar characteristics, and we show them in business with this graph. Now, what he said is his life was long, but it was short, because if we have a look at it, we think about the life of this fidget spinner. He goes over its life history. First, there was the development stage. That was when he sat in his garage and he designed it, and he thought about, if I put these ball bearings together, spin it around, it does this silly thing. So that was the development stage. And on that time, if you put it on a graph, it was at the start and the sales were 0. There were no sales before it was actually fully created and sold. And we call that the development stage. He said, then there came the day, the great day, when it was ready for sale, and I introduced it to the market, I put it in a shop, and it was released. Now, once that happened, we call that the introduction or launch stage, and sales slowly start to creep up at that point, as he had to spread the word about what this thing actually was. Different products will launch faster. If you're talking about a product from Apple, one of the advantages of being a big brand is that the launch stage can be very rapid, because they got all of the hype and people buy it very, very quickly. But his was a slow, gentle launch stage because no one knew what the fidget spinner was. Now, it was gentle, let's say it was 6 months. After that, people mainly knew about it, and it just grew and grew. More and more people want to buy it, and we call that, surprisingly, the growth stage, where over time, sales are consistently rising. Next, there comes the maturity or saturation stage. And in different exam boards, different levels, they probably put more stages into this, but they're all essentially the same thing. It's the understanding behind it. And in the maturity, that's where everyone in his country or everyone there was probably knowing about it, and those people that wanted one, needed one, had bought one, and were continuing to buy them. So sales were consistently high, about as high as they were ever going to be at that point. It was a mature product. It was full of life. It was at its peak. And then he got sad, he says, because products don't live forever. Some live for a long time. Diet Coke might live for many, many years, but the fidget spinner didn't last very long, and people gradually got bored of it, heard about it, and it went into decline. And that's when sales start to drop over time. And he said, so I've had a long life, but the fidget spinner, if you think about it, it was a short life cycle. People, I don't know how many years ago it was now, but people went, wow, it's amazing. They bought it, and then a couple of years later it died out, and you rarely see them. But he says at this point in the story, I'm going to put him here in this point of the story on my graph, you can see it. And he says to Emily, I'm not ready for my product to die. He said, so I've called you in as a marketing manager, and I want you to revive it. I want sales to go back up again. The line would go over here. And I want you to use extension strategies, a key term, to revive it. And Emily is an expert in extension strategies. He says, go away, come up with some plans, and then I'll decide which one I want to use. And she says, no problem. I can revive the fidget spinner and get sales back up again over to maturity levels. So she goes away and thinks about it, and she comes up with 4 different options, the 4 you need to know for the exam. She says the first one, you could enter into new markets. She said at the moment that sales product life cycle was good. It was only for, let's say, the UK, but why don't we also launch it in France? At the moment, we haven't tried to sell any of these things in France. So he says, what's the advantage and disadvantage of that? She said, well, the first, obvious, you got more potential customers. At the moment, your potential is only people in the UK. You sell it in the UK and in France, you've got maybe twice the amount of potential customers. The other advantage is it spreads risk. If something happens in the UK, some big problem against fidget spinners or anything goes on, a war goes on, then we also can sell in France. So it spreads, it diversifies the risk. So that's good for us. He said, okay, I like that. What about the disadvantages? Well, high costs of entering the new market. We're going to have to create new adverts in French. We're going to have to look at place, look at the other video. We're going to have to agents to sell these things. This could be coming with high costs. There's also a risk, cultural and legal differences. Maybe they don't like it in France. Maybe they're not buying it as a fidget spinner. Maybe they don't have a problem with lack of concentration over there. And maybe it just doesn't work, and that's high costs for it to not work. He said, okay, I'll have a think about that. What else have you got? She says, next one, new uses. Imagine this, right? At the moment, she says, we're putting it as a fidget to get kids who fidget to stay still.
why don't we reinvent the marketing? Keep the product the same, but we start putting adverts saying, this thing is brilliant for stressed adults. If you're feeling stressed, just spin the thing round and it will reduce stress. He looked cynical. He said, do I have to change the product? No, you don't change the product. You just change the way we present it. So the advantage and disadvantage then? Well, the advantage, it attracts a different type of customer. Before we were just looking at children, now we can attract like 60-year-old women who are stressed. We're going to expand our market again. It also, the other big advantage, well, it extends the product without actually changing the product. It's relatively easy to do from a product point of view. It's just changing the marketing. The disadvantages though, well, maybe customers don't accept it. Maybe they don't believe that it really is for reducing stress. We've seen it before. Are you just tricking us? So people may be cynical of that. Also, you may confuse the people who still just about believe that it was good for the original purpose of stopping people fidgeting, and you could end up with nothing. So that could be a problem. So, all right, I'll have a think about it. What else have you got? It says, right, next one, adapt the product. Keep the rough product the same, but make variations to it. So in this case, what we could do is we could change the colors and we could put LED lights around it, make it all impressive over here. So when it spins, it lights up. He says, oh, I like that. That could be good. What's the advantage of that? Well, it makes the product more attractive to existing customers. The people who already had the boring old yellow one, they go, Mum, I need a new one. I want this one with the lights on. So you increase the sales, you get them excited again. You also get a sense of a new product, and therefore you might get new customers even with it, because it looks now more like a high-tech toy. You might get some new customers coming in. The disadvantages though, you've got the costs of redesigning and production. You've got to make those changes, put LED lights. You're gonna have to do some market research about how to do that. And there's a risk that the changes you make might upset the people who still like it again. Maybe they just liked it without the lights and this is all feeling a bit too clever. He says, okay, one final option for you. What about this one? What about we just increase advertising? Why don't we get a social media campaign, put it on YouTube, we get some influencers and tell them, you know, say how brilliant it is to remind everyone one of it. They say, okay, what's the advantage and disadvantage of that? And they say, well, it increases awareness. Maybe a lot of people who were using it and had it covered, maybe they've forgotten about it and they start getting the kids playing with it in school again, so that can increase sales. The other advantage is quick and easy to do. We just pay this influencer, get them to hold it up, cost money, but those sales will go up immediately. The disadvantages though, well, it costs a lot of money. If you're going to get a good influencer, they're going to cost you a lot of money. Your sales, that's going to be expensive. And the other disadvantage, what happens after you stop playing that promotion? Isn't it just going to dip down again into the decline stage? So is this a temporary? Finally, Emily says, what do you think then? He says, I don't know. Can I do all of them? She said, yes, you can. There's nothing to say you just do one of them. Maybe, like many energy drinks, you do a range of them over the time. But in the exam questions, you're often going to have to choose one. That's it for this video. Hope it helped. Any comments, as always, put them below. Welcome to Biz Ed Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at another marketing topic of pricing and price. We're going to cover the 6 methods we've got on the screen. Then we're going to go through the advantages and disadvantages and then make a choice. Now, as ever, we're going to do it with a silly story because it's the best way to be able to apply, understand, and evaluate, not just know stuff. We need to really understand it. So this silly story is going back based on one I've told before, where we had the character of John, who was on an internship at Apple and learning about marketing, and Irene Smith was the boss at Apple, the marketing expert. Now my story moves on and he gets a job for a small, new, modern mobile phone company, and he's got to set the price for this new diamond mobile. But he's nervous, he goes back to his old boss and asks for help, and she says, I work for Apple, I'm not going to do that. But she says, all right, I will help you a little bit. I will tell you the technique, the 6 main techniques of pricing, but you've got to make the decision yourself. But first, let's talk about what price is. And he says, well, I know what price is. And she says, well, do you? Because lots of people get it confused. When we go around the supermarket, we often say, hey, what does it cost? Now, we don't really quite mean that from a business perspective. We are talking about what is the selling price, because the selling price is the amount of money a customer, because we're the customer in the supermarket, pays to purchase the product or service. So do not get cost and selling price mixed up. Price is what is it sold for? What does the company put the price of it being sold? Okay, so she's cleared that one up, and she says, now I'm going to go through the main techniques and the advantages. Now there's lots of techniques. These are the main ones. They vary by syllabus, so just check which ones you need to cover. The first one she talks about is cost plus pricing. She says, I'm not going to read the boring definition that's down at the bottom of the screen. She said, but what they do essentially, just like with Big Mac, where they use cost plus pricing on their product, they just work out first, what does it cost? And then let's add some extra onto that. It's the one that most of the time in class I say, sell this pen. It's most of the way you would think. You say, well, hang on, what did it cost me? The pen cost me €1. I'm going to sell it for €2. Most people would do something like that. And that would be, you could say that's 100% markup because it was €1 plus 100% of the price. Or you could be just saying, I'm adding on a certain amount to the price. I want to make €1 off each pen I sell. So I work out the pen cost me €1 and I add on another 1, taking it to 2. Various different ways, but they base it around what does it cost them and then add on whatever extra they want to make. She says, right, what are the advantages and disadvantages of companies doing this then? She said the first is it's simple and easy to calculate. And I would add, if you're doing A-level, if the costs are known. It's not always quite as simple to know the exact costs at A-level, but for GCSEs, if you know your cost, your pen is €1, it's quick and simple. Just say, well, I want to make 1 extra euro. Secondly, with a big caveat, it ensures consistent profit margins. It ensures if you sell the pen, you're going to make a profit on it. But if sold, the mistake that's made by so many candidates, it doesn't always ensure a profit. We'll come to that in disadvantages. It only ensures profit if you sell it, because let's look at the disadvantages. You might not sell any at all. If I said, this is my pen, it's €1, it cost me €1, therefore I'm going to sell it for €2,000, that guarantees me a profit. Well, it doesn't really, does it? Because no one's going to buy my €1 pen for 2,000. So it can actually discourage sales. So it's only advantage if you sell it. So one thing of cost plus pricing, it might discourage sales altogether. Second disadvantage is there's no incentive really to reduce your costs. And businesses usually want to do that to be competitive. But you say, well, it cost me €1 and therefore I'll sell it for 2. But maybe you should be haggling and trying to get the pen for 50 cents. So disadvantage there. She goes on to the next method. The next method that she looks at is competitive pricing. She says, read the boring definition down here, but what this means is that companies like Pepsi, they don't just set the price by looking at the cost. They go and work out all the time. They go back and forwards to the shops, say, well, what's Coca-Cola selling it for? And then they decide. It doesn't always, often you'd say they go below on the price, but be careful, they might even go just above it, but they put it roughly in line with their competition. So Pepsi putting its prices in line roughly with Coca-Cola. The advantage is, well, your sales are likely to be high. You're in the game there. You're in line on the shelves with what everyone else is doing. So you're likely to get sales. This is very useful if you don't have a strong USP, a strong, unique selling point. You could argue that Pepsi doesn't have anything particularly unique. Tastes like Coca-Cola. Some people are going to be hating me, going, no, it's better or worse. But it's not anything particularly that stands out. So you might as well just align it with the competition. They haven't got a particular unique selling point. The disadvantages, well, it may force you into prices that you can't really produce. Coca-Cola's selling it for 50 cents, so we've got to sell it for 50 cents. But hang on, that means we're only going to make 5 cents profit per can. It forces you into things you might not want to do, and your profits might not be high. And it's also, disadvantage, time consuming. You've got to continually be working out the price of your competitors and then adjusting your prices. You're going back and forth on that. Next, she says, promotional pricing. Okay, promotional pricing is, well, that you vary it every once in a while. You've got your set price that could be done by any method, cost plus pricing. But you say, in our strategy of pricing,
maybe once a year, we're going to drop our prices for a month. Amazon does this with Black Friday. So they've got their set pricing strategy, and then once in a while, they just drop their prices low. Definition down there. The advantage is increases sales in the short term. Your revenue would go up because on Black Friday, they sell loads more. Their revenue, how many they sell, goes up. The amount of money they get from sales, come back to that in disadvantages. And it helps clear outdated stock. If you've got stuff that's not selling, we'll drop it on promotional pricing and you'll get rid of the stuff that was getting old. The disadvantages though, it might increase your revenue, the money you get in revenue, but it decreases your profit margin because you're selling it for lower. So your profit will be much lower on each unit that you sell. The next disadvantage is the customers might be waiting. Have you bought that yet? No, I'm waiting for Black Friday. They don't really buy it at the price that you intended to. Everyone is just waiting for Black Friday to get those cheaper prices. He has a think about this in my story. I forgot about his story. He's going, which of these will be best for Diamond Mobile? Then dynamic pricing, she says, well, this one's probably most suitable for ones that are sold on the internet because it's quite complex. Have a look at the down here. But this is the one that airlines like British Airways would do. If you think about those, if you've ever tried to book a flight, then you've got to be careful. You go on, you check your prices and you say, oh great, this is going to cost me 200 euros, but wait, I'll come back in a week, check everything, book my hotels. And you come back in a week and the price has changed. That's dynamic pricing. Football matches, concerts do it. They change the price as they get closer to the event. And it might go up, it might go down, it might go on a curve, but it's dynamic. Dynamic means changing. They're continually changing it as and when they want. The advantage, well, that'll say why they do it. The advantage is it maximizes profits by charging higher prices when demand is high. If you're a day out from the football match or the concert or British Airways, you've only got a week to go, then you've got people that really need to book that flight because they want to go on holiday. You can push that price right up and get maximum profits on each sale. You can work the other way. You can also dynamically change it that you say, well, actually, no one is coming. We're going to fly the plane with virtually no one on it. And therefore, we're going to put the prices very low because that at least will get us some revenue, some money coming in to cover the cost that we've got to pay on the fuel that goes into the plane. Okay, so we can do both of those as advantage. We can just change it, be flexible. The disadvantage is customers may perceive it as unfair. Hang on a minute. Why am I having to pay this ridiculous amount of money for this flight? My friend sat next to me. They've got the flight for a third of the price. Well, they booked it a year ago, but that's so unfair. Customers can dislike it. Customers, disadvantage, may delay purchases, again, because of that. And I think a third disadvantage there, it's pretty complex, isn't it? It's difficult when you're constantly changing your prices to keep track. So you'll need internet algorithms to be working out those things. Have a think about that. Now, she says, I'm going to tell you two more, but these last two, they're only applicable for your new mobile phone being launched. You can't do this for products that already exist. Coca-Cola can't do that. It's not a new product. These are just for new products at the style of launching. A year later, once they've been out, you can't use these again. But just when you're trying to launch, have a look at penetration pricing. Penetration pricing is that you can see the definition there. You drop the price for only for your new product. And she says, take a look at Takis. I don't know whether you've seen this in the videos, but this one got me. This is a crisp. They say it's a competitive market. They're crisp, they're spicy. And all the crisps on my shelf in my supermarket, they're all like €2. And there was this big bag that was suddenly launched and it was at €1. And I was like, great, that's cheap. I'll buy these. And therefore I picked it up and I tried this new product of Takis. But the thing is, they didn't stay at that price. A year later, I still quite like these, but they're not €1, they're now €2. So it was just when they launched, it got me hooked into Takis, and then they upped the price. Cheeky things. That's called penetration. They're breaking into the new market. The advantage is it rapidly increases market share through attracting new customers. New customers find out about it and they can take sales away from the competitors, Walkers and Munchitos and all the other crisps. They take sales away and increase their own market share. The other thing is it can discourage competitors for entering a new market. So if you launch a new mobile phone and you launch it at that price, anyone else says, hey, that's a good product, I want to do it. And then they look at the price and say, oh, we can't really compete on that price. And therefore they don't go in. So that could be helpful too. The disadvantage is obvious. When you sell it, you're on low profit margins. Tackies might even have not made any money at all. They might have launched it at a loss completely. So profit margins could be low. And the next disadvantage, just as I said, they're mean. It's difficult to increase prices later on. When they changed that price from €1 of the tackies to €2, I was pretty bitter. And I have to say, I don't eat them very much anymore because they lost me along the way. I liked it because they were €1. Once they went up to €2, I stopped buying them. Okay, there's one final one, she says. Can you think what it is? It's another one for a new product. And he says, well, what else would you do? You drop the price. She says, well, think about what Apple generally do and also PlayStation. Price skimming. They do the opposite. When they launch a new product, they don't put the price low. They actually put the price very, very high. And he said, why would you do that? And he said, well, because they're such a strong brand, they can get away with it. Let's look at the advantages and disadvantages. Well, the first is it helps recover research and development costs. Designing the new PlayStation 5 was very, very expensive. That's when your costs are your highest and your sales are zero. So you can recoup that money straight away. So it's great if you can put loads and loads of money into it. You then can establish a high quality brand. When you set up that new product, it makes it look like a really good product. People say, that's expensive, this is great, I'm going to spend my money on it. The disadvantage is, though, obvious, that if you don't have a good brand image and people don't think it's very good, if the product's not very good, they say, well, that's rubbish, I'm not actually going to buy it. I can't afford to spend €700 on this new PlayStation. I'll just wait until the price drops later on. The second, unlike the previous one, this attracts customers. They're saying they're selling this for what? We can make that for a fraction of the price and more competitors might come into the market. She says, that's it. They're all the pricing methods we want to cover. So it remains to you to think about what is the best for this new mobile that you're launching. And that's what you'd have to do in the exam. You should know the advantages and disadvantages, and now you should be able to think about them, apply them to case studies, and say, what do I think is the most suitable for this product? That's it for the video. Comments as ever, write them below. Welcome to BizEd Made Simple. In this video, we're going through one of the P's of marketing, one of the 4 P's. We're looking at place. So we're going to be running through the advantages and disadvantages of the different distribution channels. We're looking at the ones on the screen, direct to customer, through retailers, through wholesalers, and using agents. And then along the way, because we're going to be doing it as ever with a little story, when you come out of this video, you'll fully understand and have passion and be able to recommend and justify an appropriate distribution channel, whatever the case study they give you. So let's get underway. Now, this silly story is once more based on an element of truth, and interestingly, it's based on my dad. So my dad's a teacher. You've got to know a little bit about him for this story. My dad has been a teacher all his life, and then he retired. Now, he was happy about retiring because he has had a hobby all his life. He's traveled and he loves photography. So he's taken loads of fantastic photographs and he's won lots of competitions. And once he retired, he thought, well, I'd really like to sell these photographs, see if I can turn the hobby into a little bit of a side business. Okay, so he's got his photographs, but he thinks, how am I going to do this? Well, the easiest way that he's got is to just sell it to in the local pub, to his friends and family that we've got. He lives in a small little town in the southern part of the UK. And when he's in the pub, he's having a beer and he's talking to the people around and they say, hey, you've got some good photos. Can I buy one of your photos? And he says, sure, absolutely. Here's one of my photos. Don't need to ask twice. The price is €20. I'm going to sell it for €20. In this video, I'm doing euros to keep it consistent, although they're not actually euros in the UK, but never mind that. So he sells €20 a photograph. Okay, but let's put some other information in this. Now, in my silly story, my dad has also got a nemesis, a neighbour who's really miserable and really grumpy, and he's just popped up over the screen. And he says, can I buy one of your photos? And Dad says, absolutely not. I don't want you having one of my works of art that I've put so much effort into. You're not having my photos.
Okay, so that in fact in the silly story is selling through channel 1. He is the producer of the photographs, he prints them off and he sells them directly to the customer. Okay, what are the advantages of that? Well, firstly, he's got full control over the business. He decides the selling price, 20 euros. He decides who he sells it to and how it looks and can you edit this photo. He gets direct feedback from the customers, whether they like it or not. If they say, well, I didn't like that one, he can edit it or change it. He's also got all of the profits. There's no one intermediary, but there's no one in the middle of this. The profit that's made is all for him. What are the disadvantages though? Well, it's limited reach. He's only got his friends and family in a small little village that he lives in. Once he runs out of those and everyone's bought one for Christmas and for their friends, that's it. He's got no more market to sell to. So the potential market size is very small. It's also, in his particular case, very time consuming. The money comes in bits and a bit here, a bit there. Each time he goes to the pub, let's just imagine he goes to the pub, someone says, can I have a photo? He goes home, prints it, gives it the next day, and then he doesn't have anything for a week where no one's there, or 2 weeks, and then he's got 3 at a time. So it's time consuming. Each time someone asks, he has to go and print. A pain. Money is not coming in regularly, so he doesn't have cash regularly. Okay. But it goes well in my story. It does get popular. He's got more free time because he's now retired, and he thinks, I want to up the game here. So he goes to his local town, and in his local town there is a photography shop, and he goes along with his portfolio of his image and he says, look at these photographs, I think they go great in your art shop. And as you can see on my screen, the manager of the shop says, okay, well, I will buy 100 off you right now at 15 euros each. And my dad says, well, that's fantastic. He therefore gets all of that money all at once. He's got 1,500 euros in revenue. Of course, he's got costs in all of this, by the way, but in revenue, 1,000 euros, 500 euros all at once, and he doesn't have to do anything. He just delivers the photographs and that's it. Then he can rest, and then next month, if he orders more, another batch, he'll get another 1,500 euros. So a lot easier. He's not having to handle change and all of those sorts of things. But a few more things happen in the story. He's walking past the shop now, and he says, well, he's remembering he bought these, he sold them now for 10 euros each, but it's in the shop for 30 euros. And he hears people in the pub now, people he doesn't know, saying, well, I like this Rob Dougal photography, but who does he think he is charging 30 euros? He's not that good. And Dad's thinking, doesn't say anything because, but hang on, I didn't get 30 euros, I was only charging 10. Some other things that are happening. Out of the shop one day he sees is his nemesis, and he's walking out with one of my dad's photos. Why has this guy got this shop? Third thing happens, in the window we can see that there's a silly photo of a dog. Now, my dad storms into the shop. He says, look, what are you doing here? Firstly, why did you sell that to that man? I don't like that man. You shouldn't sell it to that man. Secondly, you're charging too much. You shouldn't be charging 30 euros. And most importantly, how dare you put my works of art next to stupid photos of dogs? Get rid of that dog photo. It shouldn't go anywhere near it. Now, what do you think the shop manager says? We'll come to it in a moment. Okay, so this method is channel 2, where it goes from the producer, my dad, to the retailer. Retail is another word for shop, the shop, and then the shop sells it to the customer. The advantage of this is now got a much wider customer base, much larger potential market. He's also got passing trade, just people walking down the high street in the local town who weren't thinking about photos. They see it in the window and they say, okay, well, I'll buy one of those. So we've got a lot more people, not just his friends and family, to sell to. Less time needed, remember, because he's not having to go and sell every individual painting. He just sells it all in bulk in one go. Thirdly, the shop is paying for the advertising and the promotion. Now, he doesn't have to do any promotion. The shop, he can just be sitting to the radio and he hears a radio advert, Rob Dougal Photographers on half-price sale or whatever it is. That's all in the hands of the shop. He can relax and not do any of that. The disadvantage is, though, he's got a reduced profit margin. Have a look in Unit 5 for the exact terms of profit margin. But there's someone taking a cut out of his money. Remember, he got paid 1,500, a lot of revenue in one go, but he only got 10 euros per photo, and they're being sold, I think, for 30, I said. So someone else is making a lot of money off kind of his hard-earned work, and he can be a bit upset about that. Secondly, less control, because what do you think that shopkeeper said? He said, go away, it's nothing to do with you. I've bought these photos off you, they now belong to me. Don't you dare tell me anything about who I can sell to or what should be in the shop window. So my dad absolutely lost control in that. He doesn't get a say. Once he's sold them, it's nothing to do with him. Now that might be upsetting my dad when he feels he's a bit of an artist and he wants control over these things. But in the story, we'll say he gets over that and it continues to go well. They're ordering more and more every month. And he starts to think, well, I know, I'm going to look online and I've seen shops all over the Great Britain. I've seen them way up in Scotland, over in Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. I've got shops everywhere. I'd love to get into all of those photo shops. But he says, well, I'm too old to be driving around all of these shops. I don't know anyone. This feels too much like a business experience. How could I get it into those shops? I'd love to have the whole of Great Britain as the potential market. So he searches on the internet, he looks it up, watches one of these videos, and he says, well, I know, I'm going to find a wholesaler. Now, what is a wholesaler? Well, this is a wholesaler in my image, and he's got a warehouse and a load of lorries that sit in the centre of Great Britain. Now, what that means is that he doesn't have to phone all of these shops. He's just going to phone one wholesaler. He phones up the wholesaler and he says, hey, come and see my portfolio, or I'll come up to you in one journey. Here's my portfolio. I think you could sell this to all the shops. If you buy loads off me, keep them in your warehouse. I heard you've got connections with shops all over the UK. You could deliver them for me. Every shop will love them. My problem is I just can't go there myself. The wholesaler looks at it. He says, okay, I like the look of this. I've got loads of contact in photographer shops all around Great Britain. I will buy right now off you. You got to print them all off, but I will order 10,000 of your photographs at 10 euros each. It was 10, what did I say, 15 before. So I will order 10,000 at 10 euros each. Well, my dad's delighted by that because now he has got a massive amount of money all going in at once. He looks up on the internet, or has a friend who goes to Scotland to a shop he's never been to in Scotland, and he sees that in this shop, one of his photographs is in the window to a shop he's never been, a place he's never been, and they're selling them for 40 euros. Okay. My dad's very happy with this. He's made for this, in one transaction of delivering these photos, he's made 100,000 euros. This we call channel 3. It's the producer, my dad, who sells to a wholesaler and then the wholesaler sells it off, travels around the country with lorries and sells it off to individual shops. So this wholesaler is just very well connected with all shops and good at logistics of transporting. The advantage of this, well, it's more of the same. In each of these, you can just add to the ones that we've previously had. It's more of the same, but this one is an even larger potential market. It's now not just the whole of the town, it's the whole of Great Britain. It, again, saves a lot of time here. He gets a lot of money in one go. He has to produce all of those, but that's it. It's one simple transaction. And he's not really having to deal with the business side of things anymore. He can focus on taking photographs, the things he likes to do. He just has to have one business transaction negotiation with this guy, and that's it. He can forget about it and just count his money. The disadvantages, again, more of the same. Well, the disadvantages, we've got lower profit per photo once more, that the profit margins go down because now what's happening is the cost has gone up to 40 euros. He's only making 10, but then we've got the wholesaler making money off him, taking a cut, and we've got the shops up in Scotland and in Northern Ireland and everywhere else taking a cut. So he's getting squeezed down in actually what is received from the selling price of these photographs. He's also got a complete loss of customer contact. He doesn't have any clue what people are thinking because he's just in his house now taking photographs. He doesn't deal with costs. He doesn't know what people are saying. The only feedback he gets is how many of individual photos are being ordered. So he's got real loss of touch with his customers, and that could create him some problems. But nearly there. We'll go to option number 4. We'll say he gets even bigger. He loves it. It's going really well. He's got loads of money, but even though he's retired, he's greedy. He wants to go even bigger. And he starts to say, hey, my photos would go really well in Spain. And I know the deal. It's simple now. All I need to do is get a wholesaler in Spain. They can put it into all of the shops all over Spain. So I know the Spanish are going to love my photographs. So he gets his mobile. He gets his mobile phone and he phones up a Spanish wholesaler. He phones her up, ring, 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 and of course, the Spanish wholesaler will pick up the phone and say, hola, buenos días. And my dad goes, ¿qué? What? I don't know how to speak. ¿Qué pasó? Says the wholesaler. They now have a communication barrier. Now, even if my dad's got a little bit of Spanish, he's going to struggle to be on good negotiating terms. The Spanish wholesaler is going to be able to confuse him with legal terms. He's not going to have a clue what to do. He's not going to be able to negotiate this deal well at all. So he hangs up and he says, I need something else. Again, he goes back online and searches, what can I do? What can I do? And instead, he finds an agent. Now, the agent advertises as a Spanish-English agent. This is someone who's gone to an international school like mine, who is completely bilingual in both Spanish and English and understands both British and Spanish culture. So he phones up this agent and he rings, he's over in Spain, and this time this person picks up and says, hola. He says, what? And she says, oh, hi, I can speak in English to you if that would be easy. And Dad says, oh, fantastic. Okay, I want to get my photographs into Spain. I want to use a wholesaler, but I don't really know how to communicate. Can you help me with that? The agent says, of course I can, no problem. I'll negotiate that. I'm an expert at dealing with these people. I know all the laws, but of course I'm not doing it for free. I want to get 10% commission of all the money you make using my contacts. 10%. My dad says, okay, all right, let's do it. But he passes it over. She organises all of the deal, the agent with that, and now we've got massive, massive numbers being sold. You get the idea. 10% commission there. Let's have a look at this final one then. Channel 4, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Well, we have the agent for international sales. The agent goes to the wholesaler, probably, doesn't have to be, who then goes to the retailer, and then it goes to the customers. The advantages, you'll have an agent who's an expert in foreign markets. They can help with the negotiating. You've also got the same advantages that have come before through going through this channel. Massive now potential market because you've got access to new markets, so you're not tied to your local country, your local language. You can access all of the world through using agents, and you're going to be selling in vast quantities, having a much larger revenue in one go. The disadvantages of though, someone else is taking a cut of your profit. So your profit margins are going down on the retail price. The price would probably go up. So commission costs, the agents are charging fees, the wholesaler is taking a cut, the shops, the retailers are taking a cut. All of your profit is being eaten into by these other people. Second disadvantage, and again, disadvantage are the same in the previous, you've got real dependence on that agent. That agent is doing all your negotiating. If you don't trust them, if they trick you passing a law, you've got a real risk. If they suddenly disappear, your business deal could be taken away from you as well. So you've got to have real trust in that. That's it for place. That tells you everything you need to know, hopefully. It makes you understand it. Now, within that, you might be asked, which do you think is the most suitable way? Where did my dad's story really end? Well, it ended in Channel 2. Why? Well, he didn't like losing control. He wanted to be the artist. He didn't want to grow so much and have that money. It was still sort of a hobby. Now, hopefully you got the gist of that and you'll be able to be passionate. You might even say, what's he doing? This is an opportunity. He should be going with it. That's how you recommend and justify. Of course, when we were looking at converting, which I didn't do, I kept it all in euros for keeping it simple, but there would be exchange rate issues if you're going into another currency. And if you want to find out all about those, have a look at this video, exchange rates. That's it for now. I hope it helps. Don't forget to like and follow. Welcome to BizEd Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at another one of the P's of marketing. We're looking at promotion. So we're going to be covering the reasons for promotion, then the two different methods that we need to know. We're looking at methods of advertising and then the methods of sales promotion, which is something that's within the topic of promotion. And then we're going to look at the different methods, and along the way we have to recommend and justify, because that's the sort of questions they like to give us. So as ever, I'm going to make it into the silly story, because you can't recommend and justify unless you fully understand, not just know and learn definitions. You've got to understand it. So I'm going back to a story I've done before, where we have John, who's a new to marketing, and a Rennie Smith who worked at Apple, and she was the expert, and she's mentoring him through this problem. So the first thing, definition, we got to know. What do we mean by promotion? Well, it's where marketing activities aim to raise customer awareness of a product or a brand, they increase sales, and to help increase brand loyalty. That's the complicated definition. What do we mean by all of this? Well, before we go into exactly why do we have promotion? She's going to talk to him about that as well. Why do companies promote their products? Well, various different reasons. The first one is to introduce and inform about a new product. If you're launching, if you've got a great idea for a business and you get it sorted, you can't just expect to sell it. You've got to let people know about the business. So for that, you need to promote it. Secondly, you might be an established business, and if you look at the product lifecycle video, whatever stage you're at, you might need to raise awareness. Maybe particularly if you're in decline, maybe people are forgetting about you. You need to remind them, so you use promotion for that. You might be using promotion to create a brand image. Have a look at the brand image video. Brand's incredibly important, and you're going to need to use promotion in order to get your brand. You might need to be damage limitations. If you're a big oil company that spilt oil in the sea, then you might need to put promotion in place to improve your image. Or it might just purely be because you want to increase sales, that you want to grow, you want to expand, and in order to do that, you're just cruising along, you're going to put promotion in place in order to boost your sales. So there are the 5 reasons we can put down in the exam for the reasons of promotion. Now let's look at the different ways. So advertising. I'm actually going in reverse order to the syllabus because it didn't seem to make any sense what was there. So I'm going to start with advertising. You all roughly know what it means. You're seeing it. And in fact, this whole topic, I would say that you're not really looking at the textbook. You're going to understand this because you see it and deal with it every day. And you should use your common sense. What works, what doesn't work. Right. Advertising is paid for communication through media such as TV, online, or in presence, like when you're actually there, to inform or persuade customers to buy a product. So the different ones we need to know for the syllabus. Let's get into it. She's going to talk to John through some of his options because he's looking at using promotion for his new mobile company, Diamond Mobile, I think I said in the other story. So the first method of advertising, oh, my favorite, direct or targeted emails. Using the example of Vodafone, that maybe if you've got an email, you get like that spam email saying, hey, welcome to our offers. Or maybe worst of all, you get that phone call and say, hey, this is from Vodafone. Do you want to increase blah, blah, blah? Do you want to buy this? I get a lot of those things. The advantages of that for companies, there must be them because a lot of them use it. So the advantage is you target customers that are likely to be interested. You can choose who you're going to. When you send that email, you can get them off a mailing list and you say, right, this would be a perfect person. So you don't waste any of that. You can target the specific potential customer. It's relatively low cost. You can just get someone in a call center and say, keep calling these numbers rather than putting some big grand advert somewhere. The disadvantages, well, it can be seen as spam. Yes, I don't love it when they phone me. Be polite and then get off the phone as quickly as possible. Very rarely has it encouraged me to go with that company, but it obviously works. The second disadvantage is fairly limited reach because you are directly contacting each of those particularly if you're using the phone method of it. If it's through emails, perhaps you could go through a larger base, but the less personalized it is or feels, the less effective it's probably going to be. So, do you think it's good? Is it useful? John's got to decide this as well. The next method of advertising, leaflets.
a little bit old-fashioned, but still exists, certainly more when I was young. Leaflets, the paper things that you find at the shop, they hand them out, they post them through your letterbox. What are the advantages of those? It's a low-cost method of production. You just need to print them and then print 200 and then just hand them out, put them through people's letterboxes. The other advantage, it's effective. It's still not gone away entirely because it's very effective at targeting local areas. If you want to get the people who live in that area, we'll put it through their letterbox and you're definitely getting to your target audience. The disadvantage is it's fairly limited audience reach. You're only getting people in a local area. It doesn't really help if you're an online business. You just got to go door to door and do that. The other disadvantage, they're often ignored or thrown away. Yeah, it's just seen as litter, drop through your letterbox, you pick it up, you put it in the bin, you recycle it. So maybe not so effective. Maybe it is for certain businesses you're thinking all the way along. Do you like them? Do you not like them? What's your personal experiences of them? Next, excuse me, methods of advertising. We've got social media. You're probably going to be more of an expert on this than your teachers and myself. The adverts that you see on Instagram, on TikTok. This is companies are paying for these. We actually look at this in another section of e-commerce, but the paid adverts here, what's the advantage? Well, it reaches a large audience quickly. You can pay to get it to 2 million people and you can get it in over the next 24 hours. You can get it in an hour. You can pay and get it to a large audience internationally. Next, you can target it to specific customer groups. That is all of the data security that everyone's worried about because actually companies, once people are 18, they can pay and say, I want to get this advert to people who speak French and like basketball. You can put it to that level of detail to get to your target audience. The disadvantage though, well, there's high competition for attention. All of these companies, you're scrolling through all of these things. How often do you stop and look at an advert? It's very competitive now. And the advertisements, therefore, because it's high competition, they can be ignored and skipped very quickly. You just click off it as quick as you can. And you can be frustrated, not just ignore it, you can actually be annoyed. There's certainly some ones that annoy me on there. Okay, the next one, again, slightly old-fashioned but still exists, the billboard. That's the one that we've got by the side of the road, just like that, or next to the train station. So BMW, in this example, have used it. What's the advantage? Well, it's high visibility to a local audience. Really does raise awareness. When you're driving down the road and you've got a great big billboard seeing the new BMW, it's going to be tempting to you. It's very effective for increasing brand awareness because the people in that local area, you can't help but see it and you can't turn it off. If you're driving to work and you see that, you know all about the new car that BMW has released. The disadvantage is it's potentially expensive. If you want to do this not just at a local level, you want to do this at an international level, well, putting a build-up board up is a big old thing and it's expensive, so can be high cost. It's not really for small businesses. And the next disadvantage, very limited information can be communicated on it. That you can't have all the details and the price. To be honest, you can see on that one, already there's too much detail. For details, call that number. Well, you can't write that number down when you're driving past. A pretty poor example. Really, all you're getting is that message, powerful, agile, intelligent, and the picture. Anything else, it's gone on a billboard. So perhaps not so effective. Now we're looking at sales promotion. So within promotion, we've got sales promotion. So what is sales promotion? It's when a business uses short-term incentives, such as special offers or discounts, to encourage customers to buy a product quickly. So whereas the advertising, when we looked at that, they're probably long-term creating a brand and informing people about your brand and your products. Sales promotion is all about a short-term strategy to quickly persuade the people while they're there to buy it. So let's have a look at some of those techniques and the advantages and disadvantages. The first one, vouchers. Burger King uses this a lot, just like we've got on this screen here. The free, you've got $3.99. You can rip those off and then you go in and you say, right, I'm going to have this because I've got a discount on this. So vouchers, it encourages immediate purchase. This was going to have a time limit. Maybe you've done it before, you've kept it in your wallet and then you've gone in and you say, no, it's expired now. Okay, so it really encourages you to the customers to buy that now. It attracts price-sensitive customers, so people who can't really afford it, they go, oh, okay, well, normally Burger King's a bit expensive, but I've got this discount, I'm going to go in today, when they wouldn't normally have gone in. The disadvantages, well, of course, it reduces profit per sale. Perhaps they normally sell that at €12, they're now selling it for $3.99, so they're reducing the amount of profit on that sale. The customers, next disadvantage, the customers may only buy when discounts are offered. Perhaps if you do this too often, people just wait and they say, well, I'm not going normal. They go into Burger King and they go, where's the discount? Where's the voucher? Oh, I'm not going as a result of that. So that could be a disadvantage. The next method, reward schemes, loyalty cards. You've probably seen this at things like Starbucks, where you can see this card, a real one, that each time you go, you put a stamp on it, and when you've got all 10, then you get a free coffee. You can use it at sports centres and swimming pools and amusement parks, but Starbucks love it. The advantage, well, it encourages repeat purchase. You don't just go to Starbucks once. You go, oh, look, I've got 9. Oh, yeah, I want to go to Starbucks instead of Costa Coffee, because then I'll get my 10th and then I'll get something free. So it encourages people to come back. And this whole process builds loyalty, that they carry a card round with them in their wallet and they feel connected with the business, not just a place they stop and have a coffee. It's something that they're connected with and they've got a relationship. Hey, look how many times I've been. I've been 10 times in the last month. The disadvantage, it's costly to set up and maintain. It's not just pay for an advert and put it on. You've got to have a whole system for monitoring and making sure that people aren't stamping it themselves and making sure that each time they go, they've got the correct stamp. So it's a lot of organizing to do that. And benefits may take time to increase sales. We talk about sales promotion being trying to encourage immediate sales, but maybe it doesn't work. Maybe actually that when people see that you've only got 1, it doesn't encourage you to have the second. It works better when you've had 9 and then you're going to the 10. So maybe it's a little bit slow to increase immediate sales. It will take a couple of months for that to work through. The next method, competitions. Well, used a lot in lots of things. My memorable one from my youth was Walker's Crisps, and they literally put money folded up into the packets, and you could open the crisp. You used to pay 20 pence or something a packet of crisps, and then some of them you open up and you've got a £5 note inside. All of that encouraged me to buy it. Well, I'm going to pay 20 pence, but I might get an extra £5 back. McDonald's use these sorts of things as well. The advantage is, well, it creates excitement and interest. They're a little bit exciting. When you used to open the crisp, the friends would be looking over, have you won? No, and then I haven't won. But then you'd say, oh, I'm going to buy another pack. A little bit like gambling in that sense. So ethically, is it always right? It expands, next advantage, expands the market. You're going to get people buying it, not because they love Walker's Crisp, because they like the game factor in it. They like the idea of maybe winning something. Of course, it doesn't have to be money, could be anything that comes in with it, but it's just putting a competition. It gets the people who like a bit of a game. The disadvantage, there's no guarantee of increased sales. If your game isn't good enough, if people don't believe they're going to win, then they don't actually buy it. So you've got to make sure your competition is good enough. And the other disadvantage, if your competition is good enough, you might end up spending a load of money. There are some famous examples. Look up one about a Hoover and write it in the comments. Really good story of someone who was selling a Hoover, put a competition and really stitched themselves up. I won't tell you about it. Try and write it in the comments. Next method, sales promotion, special offers and discounts, bog off, literally we call it bog off, buy one, get one free. That encourages you to buy it. In this case, Colgate have gone one further, well, one worse, isn't it? Buy 2 to get 1 free, the mean people. But all of those are special offers and discounts. The advantage of that increases sales in the short term. Yes, again, the purpose of this, that I wasn't going to buy Colgate today when I've gone to the supermarket. I've actually got a packet, but it's 2 for 1. Actually, I'm going to put that in right now. It helps clear excess stock. That if you can put a 50% off on ones that you don't really need, it's getting a bit older, put that discount on it, it'll encourage people to buy it. The disadvantage is, of course, it reduces profit margins on the thing that you sell. So when you sell this one, you've got to give away the other one. So you've reduced your profit margin on that one packet. And the next, customers may delay purchases waiting for discounts, and that would be me. I've never actually bought Colgate when you only get 1 pack. I'm always waiting for the 2 for 1 because it's always there, so why wait for it? I've drifted away from my story. All of this She explains it to John. John then has to go back to his company, just like you do, and then work out, when you look at it, what of these methods are the most effective. Of course, you can use a bit of all of them, and companies use a bit of all of them, but in your exams, you're probably going to be only asked to choose one. So apply it to the case study from your understanding. Think about real life, and that's it for this video. Any comments? Write them below. Welcome to BizEd Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at e-commerce. It sounds scary, but it's not at all. You all know what it is. You're using it all the time, all of you. So we're going to be covering what exactly and some examples, and then the advantages and disadvantages of e-commerce for businesses, and then the same for customers. Let's get into it. We need to start with a definition. So the definition is: e-commerce, or electronic commerce, that's what it stands for, is the process of buying and selling goods and services over the internet through various digital devices and platforms. Okay, what does that mean? Well, you're using it all the time. In the past, you had to go to the bank to do everything. Now, most of us don't. If we want to check our balance, we don't have to go to the ATM. We do it on a mobile phone or on the internet. We can internet bank. We can transfer funds from one place to the other on the internet. That is an example of e-commerce. Online shopping. In the past, we all had to go to the shops in the center of town. Now, of course, Amazon and things like that, we can just order it in the post, buy it online, and it comes in the post. That's e-commerce. Online ticketing, another example they've given us. Yes, we don't go to the ticket office when we want to buy tickets for football or concerts. We can just buy it from an app, from a website. So they're all examples. Now, let's get into the advantages and disadvantages. As ever, to fully understand those things, I like to give a silly example, because then you're able to evaluate. So in this one, we're going to have Susie and Susie's gran. Now, Susie is a teenager, a cool teenager, and Susie's gran is still working. She runs an old-fashioned shoe shop. Now, Susie says, we're going to start with the advantages and disadvantages for customers. Susie says, I love e-commerce. I'm always using the internet for everything. And Susie's gran is cynical. She says, go on then, Susie. What do you love? Why are you always on your phone? Why are you always buying things on your phone? And she says, Susie, the customer says, the advantage, it's convenient. I don't have to, I can buy things at 2 o'clock in the middle of the night rather than having to wait for the opening hours of shops. It's so convenient. When I want something, I just go on the app and I buy it. Of course, you know these things. You don't need to wait for Susie. You all feel it probably every day. I have a wider choice of products. If I go to the shop, quite often, when I go to shoe shops like yours, you say you've only got it in this size and in this color. When I go online, I've got all of the colors and all of the sizes. I just go to another website. And frankly, because I can go to another a website, I can compare the prices. So I can get cheaper prices because of it. Susie's gran comes back and says, but there's disadvantages to this. She says, I don't like it. What she says is, you can't actually try on the shoes. All very well, you want to go and buy your shoes online, but then they come and they don't fit you. It's far better to go to a shop, see what they look like, try them on, see how they feel. You can't do that with e-commerce, online shopping. You've also, when you're putting your card in there, oh, I'm a bit nervous. Isn't it going to be fraud? Isn't there going to be dangers of doing those things? And she said, yeah, there is a disadvantage. And you have to wait for delivery, depending on the country you're in. Sometimes you order it. My customers, when they come and buy shoes, they get the shoes and they walk out with the shoes. They can wear them out of the shop if they want. You order it and then you've got to wait for the post to come and all of those things. They bicker back and forwards for some time, Susie and Susie's gran, but the story's moved on, and eventually Susie is so good that she actually persuades Grandma to sell her shop and turn it into an online shoe shop. So it really was a good argument. But before she actually opens the business, they want to look at what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages to her gran as a business. So if we have a look at that, the advantages says, like, gran, if you sell this shop, it's going to be great. You don't have to just sell to the local people in the local town now. You can sell to people all over the world once you get your advert up. You've got far more potential customers. Also, your costs are lower. Do you know, it's costing you a fortune to have this building in the center of the town. You've got to pay for rent. Now, you can sell that building or rent it, however you've got it. You can just operate this from your house. You can use the rooms upstairs to keep the shoes. You don't need any shop front. Your costs can go far lower. You don't have to keep anything beautiful. It all goes through the post. Thirdly, you can operate 24/7.
24/7. You know, when you close on a Sunday and therefore you don't get any sales, well, online, you can just keep it open. You can just keep it open all of the time and get sales 24/7. You don't have to respond to them, you don't have to post them right away, but you can receive the order, receive the money, and then send it 2 days later. So you can get 24-hour sales. She says, yeah, that sounds brilliant, but there must be some risk. Susie says there are some risks. These are the things you have to think about. You've got high competition. Now, in your little village or your town, you were the only shoe shop and you didn't really have much competition. When you go online, you are competing against everyone, the big boys. You're competing against Amazon, because why would anyone buy from your shop rather than from Amazon? So you have serious competition. You're not just competing against local people. You're competing against the biggest of big businesses. You've also got the security risk of fraud. Just like people put in their cards, if you're going to be accepting money, you're going to have bank details on there, and someone could hack your website and you can get yourself in troubles. And thirdly, delivery and logistics. People are pretty unforgiving about wait times. If you don't get it on time, or if it gets lost in the post, the customers are going to be giving you bad reviews. You're going to have to be sending them out again. It's not totally straightforward. There we go. It was a quick video. What do you think? Should Susie's grandma close her shop and go for an e-commerce shop? Let me know in the comments. Welcome to Biz Ed Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at marketing strategy and the importance of the different elements of the marketing mix. So we've got to be covering the marketing mix. We're also going to be telling a silly story, as always, because I think that's going to help you with the second part. If you fully understand it, it's much easier to recommend and justify it. Not only that, silly stories will stick in your head without the needs of lots of revision. So let's get underway. But before we do, this is the one that a lot of people say, I don't understand it, it's complex. I'm going to show you in this story that you actually fully understand it already, even without me explaining anything. Bear with me, and I hope you'll find that's the case. We'll see a little trick in the video to see how you do understand it. Okay, so here's the story. We've got a very wealthy person who wants to start up a business. He doesn't care what. My silly story, he just says, I want to make loads of money. Not a sensible way to do things. But he knows he needs a marketing team to do this. So part of the marketing team is designing the product. So he sets someone in charge of designing the product, and that person is Lucy. Lucy goes away, thinks about it, and she comes up with the Luxaris, and that is a luxury sports car. Very fast, all of the best things. He says, okay, great. And she sends an email to another part of the marketing team, and that part of the team is the people in charge of setting the price of the Luxaris, of the product. That person is going to be Claire. She quickly skims the email and she says, well, okay, this is a simple one. We're going to set the price very, very high. We're going to set it starting at $500,000 for each car. But we're not done yet in the marketing team. She emails off to the next section of the marketing department, who are the people in charge of place, the people in charge of where and how to sell it. Have a look at this video if you're not sure about that. It'll explain all about place. But the person in charge is John. Now, John says, well, from what I read in the email, I would think this has got to be really sold by us through channel 1. We can't have our cars being sold in any cheapy place that makes us look bad. Therefore, we're going to go channel 1. We're the producers. We're going to go straight to the consumers, and consumers will have to come to our shop where we'll serve them champagne and give them a luxurious experience. Finally, then, it's all coming together, but we have to get to perhaps arguably one of the most important parts, promotion. Well, for promotion, we've got heading the team is good old Timmy. Now, Timmy's very artistic. He's an expert. Timmy thinks about it and he says, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make television adverts. We'll do other things, but the core of this is going to be a television advert. And let me tell you what's going to happen. He's all excited and he says, we're going to have the car. It's going to be speeding through a big city at night. The engine's going to be roaring. It's going to screech to a stop, and an extravagant, luxurious, beautiful woman is going to step out of the car. The door will open. She'll step out and she'll fart really loudly. Now, he says this and he giggles and people go, what? He goes, no, this will be brilliant because everyone will be talking about it. It will be such an exciting advert. It's so different. It will be fantastic. Now, let's pause here in the video in my stupid story. What do you think about that?
Do you think this product's going to do well? And why? Okay. Well, I think that you're going to be saying, this is going to be a disaster. And it is a disaster. Now, why is it a disaster? You might be saying, well, it's because Timmy's a bit of an idiot. But is he? Have a little think. Is it that Timmy's idea of playing for laughs and putting a cheap joke is terrible? Or is it something else? Pause and have a think if you want. But let's go back to the story. Well, it does fail. The business fails. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, but this boss continues and he says, okay, well, that product hasn't worked. I'm not going to fire anyone. He must be the nicest boss ever. But I want you to all get back and make a new product. I want you to do this again. He said, but this time, can you please think about marketing strategy? Because I think that was the problem. Well, they come together and they go, marketing strategy, what do we mean by that? Well, here's a posh definition you can read yourself. Marketing strategy is a long-term plan, not just thinking about the little tactics, but something long-term that outlines how the business will achieve its marketing objectives. It will think about budget, identify the target market, develop a coordinated marketing mix, and meet customer needs better than competitors. That's a long, waffly definition, but you need to know it for the exams. But what does that mean? Well, it means the problem previously is that they never got together. These four very separate departments of marketing, they were emailing, I was saying, well, that's stupid. They need a conversation and a serious meeting where they nail down their long-term plans so they're all working together. Now they go to a meeting and these are the four things they need to discuss. Of course, marketing strategy will have more, but these are four core things that they have to discuss. We have to discuss what is our marketing objective. Now that's going to come from the corporate objective that's going to filter down, but they need to know exactly what they're trying to achieve at any point in time. That can be looked at in another way. They need to know what their budget is. Well, in this case, their budget is, for my second attempt, this boss says, I'm not giving you the same budget. It's going to be much more modest. They then need to think exactly who is my target market, the target market. Who are we aiming at? What sort of people? Is it mass market or are we looking at a specific niche within it? Young people, wealthy people? Who exactly? They might even create consumer profiles or avatars so they can really nail it down into who is their perfect audience of their product. And fourthly, and arguably most importantly for this team, because that's what they got wrong, they need to be consistent in their marketing mix. Now, if we think back, why did it go wrong was the question. Well, I'll go back on the slide. Why did it go wrong? It wasn't that Timmy's idea was perhaps terrible, but what it was is there wasn't consistency. That we had the product was luxury. It was a luxury product. The price tag was luxury at $500,000. The way of selling it, in their way, was luxury. The advert ended up being cheap and tacky. Now that created the problem. For if you think of the target audience, the sort of person that would want to buy this, they're going to have to be very, very wealthy. They want a posh car. They've got the money for it. They want to drink champagne. If you've just bought this car and you see that advert with the cheap joke of farting, it's just going to be awful. It's going to absolutely kill off. Immediately that person is going to want to sell the car. So while his concept may be okay, in the consistency of the mix, it would be devastating and it would kill the product. So, attempt number 2. This time, they're really going to think about their strategy and they're going to come together, be coordinated, and this is what they come up with. So in the second time, the product they create, that's created by, I can't remember her name now, Claire, but she creates Mr. Raw. And this time it's a little dinosaur toy that is roars out loud and wobbles across the floor, and it's called Mr. Raw because they're aiming now at 3 to 4 year olds. They know about this. The person in charge of price says, well, for this one, it's a cheapy product. We want to put the price very low, so we're going to put the price at $5. A simple product, low price, nice and consistent. Then the place comes in and he said, well, for this one, in fact, we just want to get this anywhere we can. We can put it in budget shops, pound shops, we can put it in Toys R Us. So I think we're going to go channel 4 because we want this to go all over the world. So we'll use agents, have a look in the video if you're not sure what they are. We'll use wholesalers, but we'll get it into as many shops as possible. We don't really care how they brand it. It will just be, or what they do and what they do on the shelves. We want it going everywhere. So channel 4 is okay for us. Now finally it's back to Timmy. What does Timmy say? Well, Timmy says, I'm going to create an advert, again, TV promotion. The dinosaur's going to wiggle across the floor. The luxurious woman is going to walk in. She's going to pick it up and say, how cute. And the dinosaur is going to fart on her. Oh my goodness, he's done the same thing. But this time, my 5-year-old would absolutely love that advert. He would be talking about it with his friends. He would be thinking it's really funny. There would be consistency across all of the Ps. They would have a strategy. And Mr. Raw, if it wasn't so terribly named by me, has much better chance of succeeding. That's it for what we mean by strategy. If you get a question about strategy, this is where you'd have to think about all of these things and make sure it's consistent. If they said the product, when you chose the price to go with it, you'd have to think, well, what is going on in the product, the place, the promotion? Make sure your price option fits with all the rest of it. That's it. Hope it helps. Don't forget, like and follow. It really helps me. And any questions, put them in the comments below. Welcome to Biz Ed Made Simple. In this video, we're looking at entering new markets in other countries as a method of growth. We're going to cover the advantages of entering it and then the disadvantage, which the new syllabus gives us what they want to talk about. We're just going to explain it, so it should be a nice and quick one. We're coming back to a story that we've used in the product lifecycle. Have a look at that. And it was FFS. A business that I made up was a fidget spinner, and they were saying that the fidget spinner had gone into the decline stage and they got Emily in to try and take it out as an extension strategy. Go back and watch that video first, it'll make more sense, but she suggested one of the extension strategies was going into an international market, and she suggested maybe going into France. For the sake of this video, we're saying that the owner, Mr. Heavy, says, yes, that's the one we're going for. So he decides, as well as selling the fidget spinners in the UK, he's also going to export and sell them in France. We're going to run through what's the advantages and disadvantages of doing that. Let's get into it. So, the first thing, it will increase sales. Entering new markets can increase total sales. If you think about it, the UK has a population, I don't know, 67 million roughly. So currently that's their entire potential market if you just sell in the UK. If you also sell in France, you can add another 65 million to that. So you've got a lot more potential customers, twice the amount nearly. Okay, the next advantage is it spreads risk. If you're operating in both France and in the UK, anything happens that either of those countries, you can say, well, don't worry, because I can still rely on the revenue coming in from the other country. So I don't know what sort of thing could happen if suddenly in the UK demand falls, or schools ban fidget spinners, there's a recession, economic slowdown. All of these say, oh, that's terrible for the UK, but France hasn't brought that law in. They're still allowed to take them into French schools, and therefore we've still got money. We're not just dead out and out. But it's not all good, of course. There are also some disadvantages that businesses have to try and overcome. The first one, we're going to have cultural differences. So let's just keep it silly. Say, well, there's differences in taste and behavior between these two countries. It might be that the fidget spinner worked well in the UK, but the French teenagers are way too cool for it for whatever reason in my story. And they don't like the simple design. They want something more stylish. So they think it'll work, but it actually hasn't, because the culture of the French don't think it's worth it. They don't believe it as a product. The second problem they've got to overcome, disadvantage, is lack of knowledge. The business doesn't understand the new market of the French market because of limited information or communication. UK going to France, well, France operates in French, fairly obvious. So does Mr. Heavy speak, and his team speak French? Probably not. Therefore, there's going to be a language barrier, and they can't communicate, read the local laws,
deal with local suppliers. All of that is a lot more difficult and therefore more prone to errors. They also can't, when the customers write or give feedback, they don't really know what's being said there. It just makes things a lot more complicated. Thirdly, legal requirements. Each country will have different laws, and therefore, whereas this fidget spinner might have been fine, they might have applied to all of the laws in the UK, when they go to France, they've got to make sure that the fidget spinner follows the French or European laws as it would be. So they need to have a CE safety mark, which isn't necessary in the UK. That's some sort of safety thing that has to go on in Europe. The labels that they put on the box to keep it warnings and don't put it in your mouth, that can't be in English, of course. That all has to be translated into French. And they might have stricter material. You have to use recycled plastic. All of these things, they can vary by country. And there's therefore going to be cost in changing all of these things. That's it for the silly story. Do you think it was the right extension strategy for them to use, or was going for France too difficult? See you on the next video. Welcome to BizEd Made Simple. In this video, quick one, we're looking at legal controls related to marketing. We're going to look at the purpose of legal controls and the two main legal controls we need to know about: misleading promotion and faulty goods with reference to marketing, and then the effect of legal controls. Now, to do this, as ever, in order that we understand it, I'm using a silly story, and I'm going back to one that we covered in the product lifecycle video, where it was about the company FFS, who had the fidget spinner that was going into decline, and they recruited Emily to give some extension strategies. Now, the story at this point is they're saying, what extension strategies can we use? And Mr. Heavy decides to mix two together. He says, right, Emily, I want you to redesign the product as one extension strategy, and I want you to spend more money. I want a new promotional campaign to be produced, and hopefully that will extend the product life cycle, make sales go back up like you can see on that graph. So he sends her away, and he's waiting, and a month later he comes back and he's eagerly awaiting what she's got. And she says, I've done it, I'm brilliant, here we go. I've got a new social media Instagram advert all ready to go. This is gonna boost sales, and this is the advert she's produced. Have a look at that. Mr. Heavy looks at this and he goes, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Who is this Emily that's done this? Don't you understand? That is illegal. She goes, what do you mean illegal? Why? Well, if we look over this advert that she's created, all of that is illegal because it's misleading promotion. We used to talk about false advertising. We now have gone further than that. You cannot mislead customers in your promotion. You cannot get them to believe something that you know not to be true. So in this, it says here, get 100% in all exams. He says, you can't say that. That's misleading. This fidget spinner won't get you 100% in your exams. It won't boost your IQ in 10 minutes. That's not just misleading, that's actually false. This is a big problem. You can't write these things. She's like, yeah, but people will buy it. He says, it doesn't matter if they buy it, they'll sue us afterwards when those things don't come true. We cannot mislead, deliberately we know it's not true. We cannot mislead people with this. Doctors recommend it. Which doctors? He says, no doctors have seen this. He says, oh yeah, just put it there. You can't, it's illegal. I got all A's thanks to FFS. Again, this is all not really allowed. And she says, no, it's okay. Okay, I've thought about it, it's okay. But look, I've put some stars down the bottom and I've put some little comments saying doctors may not exist based on our own opinion. He says, no, that's not good enough. Okay, it's not, you counter it, but you are deliberately, because that's in small writing now. And the big message that you're giving is that it does all of those things. So you're giving the impression that we will get 100%. That is not allowed, that is illegal. And she says, oh no, I've got to do it all again. He's getting very worried. He said, right, well, okay, what about the other strategy? How did you get on with making the product? She said, oh, that's good news. That's really good. The new product is excellent. The children like it so much, they're spinning it so much that they're falling out, the bits are falling out of it, and they're having to buy a new one within 2 weeks. He goes, what are you talking about? You can't do that. He says, no, this is brilliant. This is designed obsolescence, some businesses call it. This is like, it breaks and then we sell more, the sales will go up. He goes, yeah, it may be good for us, but it's illegal. We can't sell faulty goods. They have to be fit for purpose. Fit for purpose is a crucial thing. She said, but they're just, things break. He said, yeah, but why do they break? He said, well, if you hit it with a hammer, it breaks. Yeah, okay. We expect it, but if it's breaking while they're just using it for its purpose, spinning it around, within 2 weeks, they're going to sue us. They're going to go to court. Our product has to be fit for the use for a reasonable amount of time, and 2 weeks is not reasonable. If they're just using it normally and things break and it breaks and falls apart, that is a faulty good. And those people will want their money back, and if we don't give them their money back, then we are going to go to court and we're going to lose. We cannot sell faulty goods. Emily, you are terrible. You are awful at this. You see, Emily, you have to understand the impact of legal controls on marketing. You may not be a lawyer, but we have to understand the laws. The laws restrict what businesses can say. When you make your advert, you have to get it run past the lawyers in the company. Can we get away with saying these things? Is it misleading anyone deliberately? You've got to be very careful with the words you put on adverts these days. She says, well, that's such a pain. He says, yeah, it does. It increases costs. We have to safety check things. We can't just give out a product and say, well, it's falling apart. We can't just send the advert out. We have to pay a lawyer to look over the advert. All of this costs money. We have to do this. We can't afford this. Otherwise, we'll get bigger legal costs. We'll get sued because of this. All of this, ultimately, all of these legal controls mean slow down, Emily. We have to take care. We have to take care in all of the P's of marketing. When you're designing the product, when you're promoting the product, we have to make sure we're not breaking any laws. Otherwise, we're going to have bigger problems in the future. Never mind ethical problems, which are covered in another video. We will have legal problems and we will be fined. That's it for this video. Hope it helped. As ever, write comments below.